Hi, my name's Rachel, and today we're talking about Apprentice to the Villain. Assistant to the Villain is somehow a 4-book series, and in book 2 we go on, that's right, another wild goose chase full of innuendo and plot conveniences.
What is going on? What are you doing?
Yay! This book series started as a skit, which to this day I have not watched, but I can guess that it probably works really well as a skit, but has yet to prove to me that it works as a book series. This is comped as in part as The Office, which I disagree with because The Office is funny.
I don't know. Is it classy enough?
This just takes place in an office, or at least in part it does, and is about as funny as my last office job. I think you can tell from my face that I wasn't laughing there either. This is about a young woman who gets infantilized beyond belief. Her name is Evie, and she stumbles literally into a job as the assistant to the villain.
Worked at your last job for 15 years as assistant to the regional manager.
Assistant regional
Assistant to the regional manager.
And now she's the apprentice to the villain, except that part didn't happen until the end of this book, and in the most weird way possible. The end was ridiculous, but, I mean, also so was the middle. But there was a moment at the beginning of this book where I thought, you know what? Maybe this will be better than the last one. And this book all but busted into my house with a quickness like the freaking Kool-Aid man to let me know that that was not going to be the case, almost immediately. There's always an opportunity for things to come back but better instead of worse. I've seen it with books like The Wicked King, which was tremendously better than The Cruel Prince. We love when things, especially things that we love, come back but better. And today's sponsor, which is Raycon, agrees. Raycon's fan favorite everyday earbuds classic model are now packing the active noise cancellation option. These are mine, and look how cute! I got the black ones. I love them. I may be wearing flowers lately, but I'm still in my goth mommy phase. Raycon's everyday earbuds are the best for audiobooking and for listening to Sleep Token. And I'm so glad that now the classic model has active noise cancellation, because my house is so loud because we're in summer. So the kids are home. It's so loud. Please save me. I'm just kidding, but ANC mode is my lifesaver during summer. It's so quiet and they're so cute. Everyday earbuds are the best no matter what I'm doing. If I'm audiobooking while I'm having my morning sit outside where I get some fresh air before going back into my house and hiding from the sun, or if I'm listening to the new Sleep Token album while doing the dishes or terrorizing my cat, or even killing a wasp nest outside while listening to fictional murder in my ears. And active noise cancellation isn't even the best feature. You also get 8 hours of playtime and a 32-hour battery. You get 3 sound modes tailored to your preferences, and they have reliable earbud button features, so and my audiobook is playing, and then you just click again to pause it. But you can also click to change your sound preferences. You just click and voila, settings changed. But these also have awareness mode, which is great because if I need to keep an ear out for my kids while I'm jamming to Sleep Token, I can hear both them and the music without leading to me jamming so hard and not realizing that the kids have set the house on fire. Raycon audio quality rivals all the big audio brands that you know and love at half the price. So make sure you get yours today. You can support the channel in doing so. You just go to buyraycon.com/readswithrachel to get 20% off plus free shipping on the Everyday Earbuds Classic, just like mine. Let me know what you're listening to right now. Click that link below, and thank you so much to Raycon for sponsoring today's video. All right, we're gonna do a recap for book 1 to refresh your memory and mine, so let's start there. In Assistant to the Villain, our main character Evie has a family life that is her acting in a stand-in mother capacity to her little sister Lissa, and they live with their father who has something called the mystic illness, which is like a magical illness. This is second world fantasy, and they live in a world where there is a king and the villain who nobody knows who he is. In chapter the beginning of the book Assistant to the Villain, she goes to a job fair and literally runs directly into the villain who she helps out. They immediately, I'm talking immediately, have the hots for each other. There is no building tension between these two. There is no building a relationship between these two. They come on the page, they have the hots for each other, and he offers her a job. And then we jump to she's already been working for him. He also lets her know that his frog, who holds up little signs, who I thought was going to be the shining star of this book, unfortunately it was not, is worth something. because talking frogs are worth something. We find out more about Kingsley in this book. We'll come back to that. He thinks about the fact that Tatiana, his healer who works for him at the office of villainry, can remove memories. This never comes up again, which is odd because we have more memory removal stuff in this book, except it's to do with flowers, and yet Tatiana's ability to remove memories never comes up in this book. Not just Tatiana works for him in the office, we also have a guy named Blade, who is the magical creatures caretaker. We have a lady named Becky, who is the HR person, and then we have a bunch of guards called the Valiant Guard, who are led by one guard named Keeley. Wait, no, the Malevolent Guard works for the villain, the Valiant Guard works for the king. It's also worth mentioning, our main character, Evie Sage, had to get a job because, again, her dad couldn't work because of the mystic illness. Her mom is no longer in the picture because she left after her magic exploded and allegedly killed her brother, Evie's older brother, Gideon. Now, we have that beginning in when she runs into the villain and he's just like, job, and she says, okay, and they're already flirting, despite the fact we haven't established any sort of like characters yet, right? Then we jump to the office where we're introduced to different characters, but we don't really know how the office itself works. Like how financially, is the villain making any of this work? What work are they actually doing?
Looking forward to sitting down with you and finding out more about what you do here.
Anytime.
Yeah. What do you do here?
Excuse me.
We don't know. Again, it works as a skit. It doesn't really work as a book. And we have a lot of innuendo and Evie being treated like a child. She scrunches her nose all the time. She has big, wide eyes. And she's always saying things that, oopsie, sound sexual. Oh, I didn't mean it like that, boss. And she's always thinking about the villain. She's always thinking about him in like a, I have a huge crush on you kind of way, even though we didn't see them like build to this. It was just insta love. So she like makes comments to one of the other workers right in the beginning of the book, and then there's a lot of moments where it's like, oh, I said this comment about the boss and he's right behind me, isn't he? It's a lot of, and I made this comment in the last video, it's a lot of Dan Schneider Bakery kind of comedy. The villain has this gray mist magic that can seek out where people's weak spots are. I thought that's all it did, but then I'm not sure if I just misremembered or if this is a hole, but now the villain's magic can like he's like a shadow daddy now. I don't know. He's like a death magic guy rather than a cool gray mist that seeks out people's weak spots and then he, takes advantage of those weak spots. Like the mist itself is death magic now in the new book. I don't know. Every single thing that happens, every scene that happens between Evie and the villain, whose name is Tristan with a Y, is them finding ways to talk about how physically attracted they are to the other person in their own head. So even when like a bomb goes off in Tristan's office and Evie realizes the bomb is there, she's like, there's a bomb, we have to get out of here. He like carries her out and she's thinking about how muscular he is. And that is every single scene. Evie gets hurt because of this bomb in the office and he takes her home to her literal home and introduces himself to Evie's little sister Lissa with his full government name. He is supposed to be an anonymous villain, and he's just out here handing his full government name over. And then Evie's like, oh, you gave her your name. And he's like, well, yeah, Sage, it's on a plaque on my office. You leave so everybody knows what your name is. So you're not anonymous to all the people who work for you. That's going to be weird considering that y'all are about to try to find a mole in your office. He tells her, I think this job is too tough for you. So I'm just going to give you severance pay and you can use that severance pay to get a healer for your father. And instead she says, this job is all I have for me. And I'm like, first of all, what are you even doing at this job? I still don't really understand. And second of all, you only got a job because your dad has the mystic illness. And now you're like, yeah, I know he has the mystic illness and I could hire a healer with that money from the severance pay, but I really want to keep my job. So she stays at the job despite it being too dangerous for somebody so dainty and little like her. And by the way, her hands being so teeny tiny and his being so huge is brought up multiple fucking times. Anyway, he recognizes a timepiece that was inside of the bomb that went off in his office. So they go to talk to the guy he made at least part of the bomb. And it's his own brother. And that's where this book starts to turn into Once Upon a Time, where every fucking person is related. Everybody who is like necessary for the plot to continue is related. And it's like funny and goofy in Once Upon a Time. It's ridiculous here. So they go talk to his brother about the bomb, and they're like asking him questions, but they're not asking the obvious question, which is, how did they know that why would they specifically have hired this guy to make a bomb for Tristan's office? Obviously, because they know that Tristan is the villain. And that just goes right over all of our characters' heads, because everybody in this book is dumb.
I understand nothing.
So now they think there's a mole in the office. They're trying to figure out who it is. First, they suspect Blade, the guy who does all the magical creatures. They learn that the person who hired the brother to make the bomb had blue ink on their hands. We also learn that Evie has an employment bargain inked onto her, I think her pinky. And Evie seems to be the only one with gold ink on her pinky, and yet nobody asks why her employment bargain looks different than everybody else's employment bargain, if they even have them, which this is never brought up, this is never asked. I don't know who has employment bargains and who doesn't. Shouldn't it be everybody? Because shouldn't everybody be magically sworn to remain loyal if they're going to work for somebody like the villain who depends on secrecy to keep going? So it turns out that the people who make ink, like the blue ink on the hands of the guy who ordered the bomb, the ink was made by Claire, the sister of the villain. Now, if somebody were trying to kill me and they had hired two of my siblings, if they had interacted with two of my siblings, I'm gonna think they know who I am. Not this book though. And Claire used to date Tatiana, the healer that works for the office, so that's a whole thing of them not getting along anymore. We learned that Evie's mother, Nura, had star magic, and this drained the life from her. Magic was used as like an allegory for postpartum depression after Nura Sage had Lissa, Evie's little sister. I didn't really like how that was explored very much as a person who struggled very deeply with postpartum depression, but whatever, that's the least of my complaints about this book. My biggest complaint is all the plot holes and the infantilization. Evie has a issue with Becky, who works in HR, who Blade, the creature keeper, has a crush on. Everybody in this book is somehow working for the villain and is also super important to, is so connected to everything going on. So Blade's dad is a politician that works for the king. So is Tristan's. He was the big healer, the core healer that worked for the king. We're gonna find out that Evie's dad also worked for the king. We're gonna find out that in this book, we're gonna find out that Becky's mom also worked with the king. Everybody is important and connected. And at that point, it just starts to become so watered down and mean nothing because, twist, everybody's parents are connected to this shit. Nura Sage doesn't come into assistant to the villain. She does come in Apprentice to the villain though, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But she left after her star magic exploded and they assumed that it killed Gideon, her son / Evie's older brother. Tristan says at one point that the office doesn't function without Evie, and I'm like, this is the office functioning, first of all, and second of all, what do you mean? You were running this place for a decade. For 10 years, you have been the villain, and this place doesn't run without Evie? What were you doing before? What are you doing now exactly? So her and Tristan come to the conclusion, with absolutely zero evidence, that the mole in the office who left the bomb and all this, there's a mole in the office and they are smuggling out information through code. Why do they think this? Beats the hell out of me. They just came up with it on the spot and decided to run with it. Evie will ask Tristan basic questions like, why don't you like the king? Or like midway into this book, she's like, why don't you like the king? You're asking the villain who you work for, why they don't like the king.
We will ask the question.
What the hell was...
He doesn't answer this question, and she doesn't think, why won't he answer the question? So they go talk to the blacksmith that Evie used to work for, who like sexually harassed her. He like assaulted her shoulder or something and put something called a death blow in her shoulder. I didn't really understand this at all, because like if Evie got hit in a certain way on her shoulder, she'd die.
Okay, well, that still leaves a 30% chance that I'll attack you from the front.
Yeah, but it'll be easier to stop. I can always block the blow, or I can counter it with...
And he had a dagger that was connected to it. I didn't understand this at all. This entire scene was so confusing. Anyway, a guard who was undercover spilled the beans to this blacksmith that Evie used to work for before working for the villain, that there's a rumor that the villain is the king's former mentee. And that's why the king lets the villain get away with all this. And I'm like, first of all, get away with what? What are we doing? Stealing from the rich? What the fuck else? Isn't he murdering a bunch of people? And second of all, that's not just a rumor, that's literally fucking true. That's it. If that rumor is already out, then why, pray tell, why are we keeping it a secret? What does the king get out of keeping it a secret that Tristan is the villain? And further, what does Tristan get out of it? The king already knows that Tristan's the villain. We find this out in the end. So why is Tristan needing to maintain anonymity? And that just like goes out the window at one point in Apprentice to the Villain. And upon hearing this rumor that Tristan is the king's former mentee, Evie just discards this information immediately. Doesn't ask Tristan about it, doesn't care, doesn't even register with her. She just hears pertinent information and it goes in one ear and out the other because Evie is the stupidest main character I've ever had to deal with.
I understand nothing.
All the other characters have way more interesting qualities about them and backstories, like Tatiana the healer. Her healing magic showed up at her birthday, and then people kept showing up on her birthday to be healed by her, which was like, you know, upsetting as a kid. And that's Tristan like knew her and brought her a birthday gift, and they knew each other as kids, and like that was sweet and all. But Tatiana's not the main character. The main character in this book is Evie, and Evie sucks. Becky also divulges that her grandmother also has the mystic illness, and she actually stole a mask to go into the Gleaming City where the king lives to steal a cure for her grandma, which is odd. I feel like finding out who Becky's family is now, Becky could have just like used her brothers, her many brothers, to find a better way to get a cure if there was a cure for the mystic illness. But okay, it was just a way to make it seem like, oh, Becky is the mole, Becky's suspicious, and it's just like, oh no, I was just stealing the mask so I could get into the Gleaming City with it and steal a cure for my grandmama. We just went through like pointing at every single person and being like, you're the mole, you're the mole, you're the mole, one after the other. And you knew that none of these people were the mole. It's like a fucking Scooby-Doo episode in here. We also find out that Tristan's dad, Arthur, again, who was the core healer, the big honcho, the big guy healing everybody in the Gleaming City, I don't really know, worked a lot and then stopped working so much, and he showed more affection for Tristan's siblings, Claire and what's the brother, Malcolm. So, you know, Tristan has daddy issues. Oh no. I want you to remember that Claire is the ink person, and she has made the employment bargain for Evie. So she did the ink that is Evie's employment bargain, not really an employment bargain. They knew that the guy who asked for the bomb to be made had blue ink on his hands, and they never asked Claire, hey, do you sell a lot of blue ink? Can we get a client list for everybody that you sell blue ink to? Instead, they just forgot about this. And then one day, Claire randomly says, I have to make ink for my client, East Marigold. And all of a sudden, Evie starts acting weird. East Marigold has not come up in this entire book, Assistant to the Villain, before. And then suddenly Claire talks about it. Evie gets weird. Evie goes home. She's like, I have to go home for something. And she goes home. She goes into her dad's office and finds her notebook. Turns out her dad had never had the mystic illness, and a healer was being paid by the king to lie about Evie's dad having the mystic illness so that he could keep being a guard, yet Evie had to get a job because the illness was the best alibi. Him having an illness was the best alibi that they could come up with so that he could secretly still be a guard. Really, that's the best alibi that y'all could come up with. Okay, he had wanted her mom, Nura, to work for the king and use her star magic, and that was a wash, and he is mad about that. He wanted Evie to also work for the bladesmith, the blacksmith, that's it. And he knew that the blacksmith was sexually harassing Evie and like wanted sexual favors from Evie. And it turns out that not only is he not sick and lying about that, he doesn't care that his daughter would have been sexually harassed. He's just overall a really bad person. By the way, it turns out Evie's employment bargain that's inked into her skin that tests her loyalty, that would have been like, she got accused of being the mole, and that would have been like the way to tell whether or not she was loyal. Like Tristan, like she thought it was an employment bargain. Tristan knows it's not, but she could have said at any time, wouldn't my employment bargain prove that I have not lied to you and I'm not the mole? We just forgot about this, I guess. And then Tristan would have had to explain, well, that's not an employment bargain because employment bargains are green and you have gold ink, which I don't know why nobody else has an employment bargain or why everybody else is green and she has a gold one and she didn't ask about that. Who knows? None of this makes any sense. None of this was thought through. Did they make edits? Were they used? Who knows? Anyway, his employment bargain with her is not an employment bargain. It's a tattoo that is protection ink. So she attacks her dad. Her dad, I think, gets away at this point. Tristan finds her. He tells her, hey, I was King Benedict's protege. I was his intern. And he was told by like a magical, I don't know, evaluator that his magic, he would like be very powerful. He ended up with magic, his gray mist that, you know, is now death magic, I guess. But previously I thought it was just that it could like point out weaknesses. He started working for the king and helped the king catch the Givlas, which I guess it's pronounced Givla. I thought it was pronounced Guvra because it's Guvre, but I did audiobook on my Raycons, as aforementioned, and the audio narrator kept calling them Givlas. So I don't know, I guess that's how you say that. But those are like the winged snake bat things that are somehow affecting magic. I don't know, all of that went over my head. So when Tristan's magic awoke, the king was like, your magic is a danger, which how pointing out weak spots is a danger is beyond me, but okay. He slaughtered a bunch of guards and he ran away and became the villain because the king was going to keep him trapped and use him for his magic, which is like the whole thing is the king wants to use people for their magic. So now in present, they are all attacked by the king and the valiant guard. Tristan is taken. There are 2 knights left and they come after Evie. After she has murdered the blacksmith who was there, her dad gets taken captive by everybody at the office, the evil villainry office. Then 2 knights show up and one of them kills the other and then bolts. She gets back to the office and Evie says, I have a plan. Becky, I need you to kill me. And God, that couldn't come fast enough. And like we revealed at the end that the king knows that Tristan is the villain, obviously. So if the king knows that Tristan is the villain and wants him caught, why is the population unaware of who Tristan is? How does that benefit the king? That only benefits Tristan. I don't understand why that is a thing. If you've been doing vague evilness for 10 years and you're asking, like, why do I have a mole in my office now? Which it was never a mole. It was Evie's notebook was being taken by her dad at the end of the day when she would come home and he would copy it. And so he had all of this information about the office that he would then report to the king because he's like secretly still a valiant guard. And why would he need to send a mole in? Like he knows your identity. All he would need to do is like he knows that you have siblings. He knows your father. Like all he would need to do is turn one of them against you. He could, if he wanted to, he could create a whole army of moles and start infiltrating using your family. Like none of this made any sense. It doesn't make any sense. But really the thing that really pissed me off more than the plot holes is Evie and her infantilization and how Tristan's attraction to her is over the things that infantilize her. Her nose scrunching. The nose scrunching was used an incredible amount of times. Like sticking her tongue out at people. She's afraid of ladybug. She has small hands. And by the way, he put that protection ink on her because, and I quote, her eyes seemed honest, the eyes that widen all the time because she's so surprised. It's just, she got infantilized over and over and there is constant innuendo. It's just weird and uncomfortable to read. And you know what? We keep doing it in this book. In fact, in the prologue, she scrunches her nose twice. So that's where we begin. In the prologue, this is before he got captured because remember at the end of Assistant to the Villain, he is in the dungeon at the king's gleaming city palace, whatever. Her face danced into view as she neared his desk, nose scrunched as she angled her head toward him. Her face danced into view? Whatever. Your daydreaming is interfering with getting things done in a timely manner. I wasn't daydreaming, I was making a wish. Didn't anyone ever teach you that stars listen for wishes? is. She says that her Uncle Vale, who, yeah, by the way, remember how I said that everybody in this book is related? More family members incoming. My Uncle Vale was an expert on stars. My cousin Helena, also incoming. And I used to spend our summers learning of them. We'd lay in the grass at night, just talking to the sky. It was fun. She scrunches her nose again. He asks, what'd you wish for? And she says, I'll let you know when it comes true. Now, this is like in the beginning of them working together. The prologue is a flashback scene, okay? What her wish is that he would kiss her, right? So we never saw them build up to their feelings for each other. It was just immediate, and now we're flashing back to something that we show. It showcases that it was always like this. It was always just a physical attraction, and he's really into her scrunching her nose, and she just thinks he's super, super cute. I don't understand. This is not building chemistry between people. You can't just jump to the yearning. I'm not going to yearn along. I'm not gonna watch people pine and be like, "Aw," if I don't understand what they're pining over. Chapter 1, the POV is called The Knight, and we don't know who this is yet, but I'm just gonna tell you, it's Gideon, her brother. He was never dead. He was the knight that ran off at the end of the last book. The knight is talking to the king, and at this point I'm thinking, the king must not know who this knight is. Nope, he knows exactly who this knight is. He knows that it's Gideon, and there was never like a, oh, well maybe I should be wary of Gideon's loyalty. Nope, guess not. So the knight comes to the king and says, hey, Evie Sage is dead. The king's like, oh, terrible waste. This book does this thing where it will have like an inner thought, but it won't say he thought, even though this is not in first person. The king says, now she can be at peace. It was self-satisfied, the king's smile. I hate you, period. The knight's fist tightened. I just think it's weird when books do that. I prefer, and I think it's like, isn't it the rule that when you have like an inner thought, you say he thought to himself, or I hate you, rang around in his mind, bounced around in the thought bounced around in his mind or some shit. So the knight, Gideon, Evie's brother, says to the king that he can't see Evie's body right now, her dead body, but she'll be prepared. And then come the week's end, we are to unmask the villain in front of every notable noble in the land. Presenting Evie Sage as the perfect victim will solidify the kingdom's hatred for the villain. Finally, proof of all his wrongdoing. And then he gestures to a book, Renedon's story, which is, Renedon is the country that they live in. Hold on. So you wanted to prove in front of everybody that the villain has been doing wrongdoing. You could have just set something up. You could have just done this at any time. You didn't need Evie to die in order to do that. You could have killed somebody yourself, unmasked some random person and been like, that's the villain, and this is the person they killed, and look how terrible the villain is, villain bad, and then done whatever you're trying to do. What are we doing? What are we doing? Why do you need Evie and Tristan specifically for this?
I don't understand what you want from me.
Tristan is in the dungeon, and the king goes to see him.
They call me Prison Mike.
And he's like chastising him. I taught you everything I know. I molded you in my image. Not only that, I trusted you to do what's best for this kingdom. Watched as you endeavored to help me save it. And as you tragically failed, I helped you in my own way. I became the villain of the tale, and isn't that what you really needed? Yes, apparently now, but I don't know why we couldn't have done this sooner. Again, like, why not just put Tristan's face on the wanted posters? What was stopping him before? I don't get it. You're so like your mother. Then again, I suppose Arthur wasn't around enough to give you much of his temperament. The king spoke like he knew his parents well, but Tristan would have to mull on that later. You don't know that the king knows your parents well? Didn't your dad work for the king? What do you mean you have to mull on this later? Isn't it a given that the king knows your parents? Your dad worked for the king! Arthur, his dad, the core healer or previous core healer, has also been captured by the king, by the way. So surely now that you have me, you'll release Arthur, all in good time. And he's like, by the way, my assistant is very important to me. If you did anything to her, if she's been harmed, then I'll ruin you. She's a great value to my business. And I'm like, what business is that exactly? What are you in the business of other than misery? Ha! I don't get what this guy does, to be honest. And the king's like, oh, Evie's dead. So he keeps telling himself Evie Sage is not dead. Benedict hadn't factored in that he and Sage were irrevocably linked by a gold ink bargain, an employment tool that was originally supposed to ensure loyalty from his new assistant, but had instead become a way to monitor her safety. So it was an employment bargain still? I don't fucking get it. Though Sage was still under the impression that the inked gold band around her pinky finger would kill her if she betrayed him. And then he's like, she's gonna be so mad at me when she finds out about all this stuff. He would take perverse delight in her face flushing with anger and her nose scrunching. Oh yeah, the little nose scrunchies. The little cutesy shit is the thing that he's attracted to her about. Okay. And then the flush would go all the way down her chest.
No! God, please, no! No!
Oh, good grief. Dipping below her bodice, which naturally he'd be distracted by, blah, blah, blah. He gets a chance to run away. He runs through an open door. The king is there, and he says, don't go in there. Don't go in that door, Mr. Maverine. You'll regret it, I swear. Benedict had finally revealed Tristan's true name to the Valiant Guards. It would no doubt spread to the kingdom next. The Maverine name damned, his family ruined, intolerable. Not that they would be affected, but that he cared. Okay, we get it. Caring is too nice for villainry. I get it. The thing that I'm having an issue with is, why are we not talking about, discussing the fact that it really doesn't make any sense that the king has not revealed that Tristan is the villain this entire time? Why has he not done that? Why reveal it now? I don't fucking get it. There's no answer. So he runs through the door that Benedict is like, don't go in there, and it's Evie dead. Tristan had never believed death to be beautiful. Oh, brother. Black and purple fingerprints were around her throat. Worry not, my dear boy, she didn't suffer, ... much. He's so evil. He dove for Benedict, chains on his wrists, suppressing his magic. His anger was primal. Flames licked at his skin. Flames. So he's like telling Sage, hey, Sage, wake up. I command you as your employer to make up. Sage, Evie, the woman who owned the entirety of his black and tattered heart, was well and truly gone.
Cookie.
Goodbye, my lover. Goodbye, my friend.
A hot rush of liquid burned behind his eyes. A hot rush of liquid. What a way to say tears. So he kisses her hand, and this is gonna come back to haunt me later. He destroyed the one person who'd looked past it all, who'd not only seen him, but who didn't flinch. And I'm like, one person who looked past it all? Doesn't your entire fucking family know that you're a criminal? Claire, Malcolm, Arthur, all of these people know that you're a criminal and do not fucking care. In fact, sometimes they help you. You barely know this woman, or at least it feels like that with the way this was written, and yet she's the one person who looked past it all? What about all of your goddamn employees? A knight is looking at him as he's, taken back to his cell, and a knight is locking eyes with him, and it's the knight. It's Gideon. He doesn't know this, but the knight whispers something to him, something that looked suspiciously like the word hope. Hope? Why would a valiant guard want the villain to have hope? Oh my god. This is just beat me over the head with it. Then we switch to a different POV. We get different POVs in this book. And this one is Becky, the HR lady. And she's with Blade as they're acting out this plan to get Tristan back that included, Evie dying, like she mentioned at the last book. And her and Blade are talking, and he's very happy-go-lucky, where he's the Andy and she's the Angela.
How about green? I think green is kind of whorish.
And she says, I wish you'd pay more attention. And he says, I promise you I do. He reached out and gently pushed her glasses back up her nose. It mentions that she started working for the villain to escape her chaotic life, to have order. Now, number one, knowing what I know now about her life, because we see that, it doesn't feel like her life was very chaotic. So I don't know what we're talking about, but why would you go from wanting chaos to having order and working for the villain? Please elaborate on how you possibly thought that was something that you thought was going to happen, working for the villain.
I don't understand what you want from me.
I would love to know your thought process behind that. Go on. When she'd left her family, she'd vowed to live by solitude and organization as the only ways to find even a semblance of comfort in this mixed up world. Oh, brother. So the king opens up the festivities. Blade and Becky are there watching because, they have a plan that they're acting out. Welcome, my honored guests, to the villain's unmasking. So the villain is dressed head to toe in black. He has a mask covering his face. The king's like, look at this light forever extinguished by darkness, the daughter of a beloved knight, our own Evangeline Sage. Together on this night we enter a new era for Renadon as my valiant guards and I begin our quest to complete the prophecy of Renadon's story, for if we fail, our kingdom will cease to exist. Chapter 6 is in the villain's POV, and his dad is standing next to him. Tristan, we have to get you out of here before you're unmasked. Isn't it a little suspicious that the guy sitting next to him is his literal dad? Aren't people just gonna fucking figure it out? And also, couldn't you just ask the king, hey, who's under the mask? desk. Oh, it's Tristan Maverick. All right, cool. I'm gonna go. We've got plans at 6. Like, what are we doing? No, you have to unmask him in front of everybody or nobody will think it's him. Like, you're the king. You could just say it's him. And he does. Later, he puts his face on wanted posters. And then we just gloss over this. And he thinks his dad is worried about the Maverick name, like the family name. And he's like, Tristan, I don't care about that. And then the king blames Tristan for the mystic illness, the illness that's going around that affects like Becky's grandma and other people. Because of the villain capturing and keeping Fate's precious Givla for the last decade, the citizens of Renadon were made to suffer in nature's acts of revenge. So keeping the Givla captive somehow creates a mystic illness, I guess. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. We could have accused the villain of this at any time, but I guess we had to do it like this. And now I will reveal the horrible traitor to all. The crowd cried in outrage, yelling vulgar insults.
Bitch.
It's nothing he wasn't used to, in all honesty, but some of them were quite creatively colorful. You could have just said creative or colorful. You didn't need to say creatively. Then they look over and they notice that Evie, where her body was lying, there is no body. What in the Deadlands is this? Who's responsible? The king shouted. And Evie pops up and goes, what a lovely party. Ugh.
This is no get-together. This is a party.
I am perhaps a little hurt that you neglected to send me an invitation. Evie's POV in the next chapter, there was a bit more screaming after that. Evie would have been amused by it if she wasn't so out of sorts. The cure to the sleeping death fruit, the rare magical fruit Becky had procured, was supposed to take effect before she was displayed like a macabre painting to a room full of nobles. So they have been apart a week and now they're like lurching towards each other. And somebody in the crowd goes, necromancy! Dark magic, she's a witch. And my note says, bro, I fucking wish. Then we'd actually maybe have a good book. If you're looking for a necromancy wish and an actually good book, please read The Gilded Crown by Marianne Gordon. Thank you. My apologies for delayed arrival, your majesty. It appears I was ... indisposed. Fuck, I just read my own note. Y'all are gonna get on my case again about Sleep Token. The black mask covered a wide portion of his face, making him appear dangerous and cold. Oh my god, Vessel, is that you? Again, God, I fucking wish. Tristan was fighting. Evie's making cute little comments, of course. You know, I'm sure she's scrunching her nose. I'm not sure if it's said or not, but, you know, we can assume that it's happening. And her eyes are going really wide. And so because Tristan's fighting, she is thinking, despite the time and place, was it hope for escape that had caused this change in Tristan, where he's now fighting to get out, or was it her? So the king calls Evie a victim, and it says, I, period, am, period, not, period, a, period, victim. You are only offended because I speak true. Think, Miss Sage, do you honestly believe that saving this man is just a choice, a good one? No, you're right. I supposed it's an evil one. She like slashes him with a knife across the face. He calls her a wicked bitch. She takes a bow and says, at your service. Seize her now. I just want to point something out to you real quick before we get to the point where it says she dilly-daddied. She dilly-dallied too long. It had to be now. I just want to point out the whole I am not a victim thing really bothers me. I've talked about this in another book. It is not empowering to me. I'm not going to tell you how to feel, but I don't like when books take the word victim and make it sound like it's derogatory. You can be a victim of things, and that is not a fault of yours. Like, I just find that so weird to like demonize the word. I've said this in another video where that book just absolutely hammered home. I refuse to let her call herself a victim or her to be called a victim. Sometimes we are victimized by things and people. It happens, and there's nothing gross or dirty about being a victim of things. You don't always have to be empowered. Sometimes things just fucking suck. I don't like when books do that. It feels lazy and weird and uncomfortable for me as a person who like is an essay victim in particular. I don't like it. Some days I feel like a survivor, and some days I feel like I'm not surviving. Some days I feel like I was victimized and it sucks and I gotta go to therapy, and there's nothing wrong with that. So she has a dagger and she says, release the villain and Arthur Maverick, and I'll allow everyone in this room to leave with their lives. A magicless young woman with a dagger is as threatening as a rabbit with a letter opener. Oh my god. The amount of times that Evie gets compared to a fucking animal. First a rabbit, then later a baby deer. Like, this is just so stupid. This is all so stupid. Like, what is this? The fucking Secret Life of Pets? So then Evie's like, you should know the difference between the Valiant Guard and the Malevolent Guard. The Malevolent Guard are made up of a majority of women. Are you certain you know everyone in this room? So it turns out that everybody in the room, a lot of them are women who are part of the Valiant Guard. What? Damn it, the Malevolent Guard. Couldn't we have called them different things? They'd been there all along, hidden behind the misplaced idea that women did not need to be watched so closely that they couldn't be any sort of true risk. I feel so empowered. Thank God you didn't call me a victim. We just went to a shortcut to man treats woman badly in order to make a villain out of a villain. That's super cool. This scene of them trying to get out of this palace takes forever. Tristan does like get revealed, so it doesn't really fucking matter. But specifically, he asks Evangelina, unmask me, Evangelina. And so she takes off his mask in front of everybody and says, hello, evil overlord.
Well, you're very saucy.
Rebecca walks up and says, I am glad you are not truly dead. The king is like, going somewhere without your friend? Oh, I thought I had a stuffed animal in here. Unfortunately, I do not. Just pretend that I'm holding a frog. So he has Kingsley the frog. So Tristan is like, all right, I gotta help Kingsley. So I'm gonna use my magic and find the weak spot on the king. And it says a black spot pulsing by his jugular signaled the perfect place to strike.
You stopped me when I reached the diseased area.
And Evie says, hey, what is that? The gray fog circling the king like a weird looking storm cloud. You can see my magic? And it's only her that can see his magic. This has never happened before. And he's taking this as like a bad sign and then takes it as a bad sign for the rest of the fucking book. Alexa, play Dark Signs by Sleep Token. Just kidding. Don't do that right now. Don't ruin this song with this book. So Kingsley the Frog bites the king, gets away, and it turns out that it was Evie who taught him how to bite because he had difficulty when I was feeding him pie. So the king says, I will spend the rest of my days ensuring that you never know peace for the way you've humiliated me. The entire kingdom will know your name before this night is through, and all of them will want you dead. Tristan shrugged, that isn't so very different from every other day of my life. Except it is because you have not yet been unmasked until now. Why haven't you again? Could we answer that question, please? Is the answer coming? Is the answer anywhere in the room with us? But anyway, it turns out that the king wasn't even talking to Tristan. He was talking about Evie. He's going to reveal to everybody that Evie Sage works for the villain. Fear not, Miss Sage. Despite your betrayal, I'll take kind care of your mother when my knights bring her into my custody. And then he makes a comment about how Evie was probably a bad daughter and that's why her mom abandoned her. How to write a villain. Just say a lot of mean things to women. Great, perfect. So then her and Tristan are running. Everybody else got separated. Don't worry, it's all part of the plan. Her and Tristan are running and she's like, I need you to rip off my skirt. Because her feet are getting tangled in the skirt of her dress. What were you thinking? She gasped as the cool night air kissed her skin, wishing a little that he would do the same. Don't wish for the boss to kiss your skin, Evie, even if that sounds entirely too pleasant. His large hand was warm, blah, blah, blah. We get it. His hands are large, your hands are small. We get it. So then he and her get to a ravine and she's like, we're gonna jump. And they both land on the back of something scaly and purple. It's Fluffy, their dragon. Guess who named the dragon Fluffy? Give you one guess. And everybody else is already on the back of the dragon. Huzzah, we did it, guys.
Is anyone hurt?
Not on the surface, no, but I can tell people are disturbed.
Don't worry, a separate exit strategy was in place for all the women who work for him as the Malevolent Guard. Through tunnels and disguises and fireworks. So then they're like, all right, we need to figure out what to do about the Givlas because keeping the Givlas contained is causing magical consequences. And also it could get worse if the female Givla is pregnant. And they're like, oh yeah, speaking of, the female Givla is pregnant.
Well, I hope you're still committed because I'm pregnant.
Tristan's tentative to-do list the next morning was as follows. Number 1, bathe. Number 2, get a report on all he'd missed while he was gone. 3, avoid thinking about Sage's thighs. And 4, murder Blade, who is his magical creature caretaker. He'd ordered everyone to bed upon their return, despite Sage's protests. Oh no, was she up past her bedtime? Oh. Tristan is like, all right, if we have a baby Givla, keeping it captive could start another mystic illness, which is allegedly what started the original mystic illness. I think whatever vengeance fate would reap on behalf of its young would be something far worse, because the Givlas are connected to fate. And so they start talking about how the king had been talking about Renadon's story. Renadon's story was just a tale to keep kids from misbehaving. My father used to use it as a threat to stop me from stealing cookies after dinner, says Blade. Told me that Renadon's storybook would steal all the magic in the land if I kept being so greedy. I always considered it a bit dark for a children's story, but I never thought it was actually real. Renadon's story was an extremely rare text that had been mythologized for years, so long fizzled out and warped that much of the public had never even heard of it. But the king, Benedict, had become obsessed with the inner workings of magic, and he had Tristan out searching for people and animals back when he was Benedict's apprentice, all to like make this Renadon story come about. So the Givlas were a piece of fate, capital F, and then another part of the like prophecy essentially that is necessary for Renadon's story is starlight magic, which Evie's mom had, remember? The king had told him a decade ago about finally having a user of starlight magic in the kingdom and how much it would help his cause. Why not just let him do it? Well, for one thing, it would require him to use Sage's mother in the same way, and for another, we don't know what kind of power Benedict would gain from reaping from fate and fulfilling a tale supposedly crafted by the gods. Speaking of power, his magic does not feel the same ever since Sage has let it slip that she can see it now. Blade makes a comment about how similar him and Evie are to the Givlas, who are a mated pair. Sage and I are hardly comparable to a mated pair, Mr. Gushikin, Blade's last name. She is my assistant. We must spend an inordinate amount of time together. Further, I am not trying to procreate with Sage. Thank God. Please keep it that way. Oh my God. And he's looking at these Givlas who are cuddling, and he saw himself wrapped that way around Sage, and the image was so startling he nearly fell headfirst into the bars. Oh my God. Fall headfirst into a pit, I beg.
I have cause. It is because I hate him.
So a mob of the employees breaks out for some reason, and Evie says, "Clear this floor or we'll have an impromptu scatter day, and I'll be sure to include everyone."
Nor will you foment insurrection.
Question. If we've already fomented insurrection, may we be grandfathered in?
Scatter day, like many things in the villain's office, the event consists of the employees being chased across the courtyard by whatever dreadful creature the boss deemed acceptable that day. He'd finally promised Evie before he was taken that he would cut it back to once a month. I know this is supposed to be funny, but like it just doesn't really make sense. Like I don't know how you're keeping employees with scatter day. Anyway, okay. "Sir, may I talk to you in private?" Evie says, and then she goes into his office and scrunches her nose. In case you were wondering. Yeah, she's scrunching her nose. Good. I know we were all waiting for it. So then they go talk to Lissa, her little sister, who is almost like unable to be distinguished between, like you can't really distinguish between Evie and Lissa because they both are depicted like children. Actually, Lissa's part here doesn't really matter. The point is Evie tells Tristan, the villain, that she has some letters from her mother. I think she stole them from the king or her dad or somewhere. Doesn't matter. The only words I could truly make out are Hasibsi, which sounds like Habibi. I don't know why we did that. But yeah, Hasibsi, which is a term of endearment that her mother calls her, love, starlight, and this dirty little rhyme that makes absolutely no sense. And I immediately rolled my eyes because I knew what was coming. More innuendo. So first she says, okay, so I have an informant now who's on the Valiant Guard. It's her brother. He just doesn't know yet. If you want to prevent Benedict from fulfilling this little plan, you might consider gathering the tools necessary and simply enacting the prophecy yourself. The person who saves the magical lands will take Fate's youngling well in hand. When Fate and Starlight magic fall together, the land will belong to you forever. But beware the unmasked villain and their malevolent dark. Notice how it says there? Yeah. For nothing is more dangerous than a blackened good heart. So they're doing a lot of assuming, again, just like we did in the last book, on who's who in this prophecy. So he's like, okay, so we fulfill the prophecy ourselves instead of letting Benedict get to it first. And then what? The land will be mine? That's what it says. It's why he wanted to unmask you, I think, so that the beginnings of the prophecy would take hold. Assuming that it's real, I never wanted the land. I merely wanted to terrorize it. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. That's not even true. Why are we lying about what kind of villain you actually are? You wanted revenge. You didn't want to terrorize anybody. This was all about you and your former instructor and you wanting to get revenge. And you took on a bunch of friends and family as employees to help you in whatever kind of endeavors you were doing that were somehow for the last 10 years you enacting revenge against this guy who definitely knew it was you the whole time. What are you talking about? You've been told for a very long time that you are made for destruction, but there is nothing that says you cannot be more. You can do good things and still be bad. Nothing is set in stone, and if it helps, I'll stand by you no matter who you choose to be. Oh, it's like a fucking Disney movie in here. So, we are enacting the prophecy. We are saving the magic. Evie grinned, clapping gleefully. The book's words, not mine. How am I supposed to take it? What better way to torment the kingdom than for you to take it over? What do you mean torment the kingdom? Why are we lying? Why are we always lying? What the lies? So they know that her mom had starlight magic. That's part of the prophecy. So they're like, all right, we need to find my mom. So read the dirty rhyme she left behind, Sage. Aloud, if you will. Where the oaks begin to kiss, she paused, hoping the blood would leave her cheeks. The caves below are where the gods once lived. Retrieve the dust that makes wishes come real, or you shall become the monster's next meal. And he's like, why did you think that rhyme was dirty? I suppose the kissing and the caves might have given that impression. He's like, does your mind live in the gutter? And she says, no, but it rents there on occasion. Stop. It's not funny. This isn't funny. This is dumb. It's dumb people making dumb, bad sex jokes, and I hate it. So it turns out the Kissing Oaks are like a known place. And so they go there in the hopes that they will be able to find a piece of magic that helps uncover lost things, which they know to be Stardust, which I don't know how they knew that, but all right. Evie starts thinking, oh my God, what if I see my mom again? And so she starts having a panic attack. She goes to find her journal and it is gone. So in the next chapter, she goes and talks to Becky of HR, and Becky, the Angela, is like, I am not helping you look for your ridiculous journal. If you've lost it, buy a new one with your own money. It is not an approved business expense. And I'm like, I would love more information about the inner workings of this office. And also, not an approved business expense. Are you Angela? Are you the accountant too, or are you the HR person? I thought you were HR. What are you doing accounting for business expenses? Also, is there an accountant? Honestly, an accountant to the villain would be a much better POV, especially if it were not a romance between the villain and an infantilized person. Someone must have taken it. I looked everywhere. Becky, if you could please just keep a lookout for it while I'm gone. What's in it? It's a work journal, so just work thing. It's a body sketch, isn't it? It's a drawing of me and also the boss, and we are, it's a sexy drawing of her and the boss, which she's been doing. Cute. It's so cute, guys. Love it. So then Keely, the captain of the Malevolent Guard, comes in and is like, hey, Evie, by the way, the boss noticed that you added the head of the blacksmith that sexually harassed you as like a decoration, and he doesn't like it. So Evie goes to talk to him, and immediately all he can think about is what she's wearing. Thigh-hugging pants, oh God, that made him want to do bodily harm to anyone whose gaze lingered on them for too long. See, I don't love the paternalism here, considering that she's already infantilized. So the jealousy just comes off a bit icky. I mean, I always don't love jealousy, but like for her and specifically, I don't like it. I'm uncomfortable. What occurred after they took me? What happened to Warson? Are you angry? I hoped you'd be impressed. I cut off his head. He tried to kill me. Tristan's power came out in curling waves around his feet, looking for a place to land. Sage eyed it, then gave his death magic a little wave like it was a blasted newborn. She gave a wave. Oh, it's so sweet. Sweet? The woman had no sense of self-preservation. Come back to me, you deviant. You killed Otto Warson, crafted and executed a plan to smuggle every woman in my malevolent guard into the king's castle, faked your own death, and rescued me with a nearly flawless escape. Did I leave anything out? And she nodded and said, I've been knitting. Ugh, I can't stand it. It's so childish. I hate it. I'm gonna look up the first book and see if the words death magic were ever used. Oh my God, would you look at that? Not a single time look at that. Not a single time were the words death magic used in the previous book. I didn't make that up. It didn't happen until this book. Again, just so we're clear, the things that piss me off are twofold in this book. The infantilization of the main character and the infantilization of her being the thing that he finds sexy about her, and also the plot holes. Ugh. And at first he's like proud of her for killing somebody, and then he's like, When the pride faded, I'd be back to worrying. Evie was being corrupted by him. This was unacceptable. Oh, something's unacceptable here. You got time? I'll list it for you alphabetically. So they go to the kissing trees, if you'll recall, and there's a sentry, an immortal being that appears human and guards the most magical points of the land. Don't hate this. Don't hate this at all. I could get down with this in a better book. When the gods created this world, it says they spilled pigment. They must have dumped a bucket load here. And it's like beautiful. It's a beautiful piece of land. It says that you cannot simply approach a sentry, but guess who can? Guess who can just show up and tee-hee her way past a sentry? Of course, our girl Evie. Love it. Listen, I'm not asking for her to be like dark and broody. I'm just asking for her to be depicted as an adult. Passing a sentry requires careful trickery, a mastery of the mind, an intellect that is unmatched even by the gods that made our world. I would like to enter, she says. Please. Great. I'm so glad she used her manners. And of course, the sentry lets her in. And he's like, I should go. I wouldn't trust you to do this by yourself. And he's saying things on purpose to hurt her feelings so that she'll like him less because he thinks that he's dangerous to her. Oh my God. Everything I say is a Sleep Token reference. So she walks into this cave and then falls down a hole and he dives after her. It says, chapter 17, Becky. Meanwhile, at the manor, her and Lissa, which is Evie's little sister, are starting to bond. Aww. She has a key that she doesn't want anybody bothering. Gee, I wonder if that's going to come up later. It's really heavy-handed that she doesn't like anybody touching her things, especially her special key. I do not like when people take liberties with my things. Evie doesn't either. Whenever I touch her stuff, her face gets all red and she looks like... Stop. This child and her sister sound the same to me. The only way to make characters endearing by this book's logic is to either make them sunshine in a childlike way or grumpy in a shadow daddy way.
Wow, you've really embraced the whole Bond villain aesthetic.
There is no in between. And I'm tired. You have a beautiful smile, Miss Airing. You should do it all the time. She had smiled often. Before. Ugh, brother. I don't smile when I don't feel like it because we're always expected to plaster a grin on our faces even when we don't wish to. Now I don't smile unless I'm 100% sure it's something I want to do. I think Evie smiles when she doesn't want to. I think she does it all the time. And there it was. That was it. The reason Becky could barely stand the woman. She was in a constant state of fulfilling the needs of others, and it reminded Becky just a smidge too much of a person she no longer knew. I mean, yeah, that's also kind of the reader's problem. Like, I talked about this in the last book. The reason I don't like it is because it reminds me of the mentality of, it's sometimes referred to as keep sweet in Fundyland. I grew up a Christian fundamentalist. We didn't call it keeping sweet in my circle, which is, if you've ever heard Michelle Duggar speak, that's what I'm talking about. It's that you are expected to be more childlike so that the man feels like more of a man. So you are expected to lessen yourself in order to make the man feel like more. And that is, in fact, what we do here. Evie's so small and Tristan's so big. Evie needs to be rescued. Poor Evie. Evie needs to be taught that what she's saying is sexual. Like, this is the stuff that I grew up with. I don't like validating a man by making yourself smaller and more akin to a child. That's what I grew up with, and I don't like seeing it here. That's why I don't like her. Now, Becky doesn't like her because Becky was written to be kind of a mean girl, and now we're turning it around. But for me, it's because this is way too close to how I was told I needed to act for my husband. I don't like it. It's not because she's constantly fulfilling the needs of others. It's because, like, I'm seeing the version I'm seeing bits and pieces of, like, the version of me that I was supposed to be in order to nab a fundy husband. Anyway, one of the guys who works for the office shows up and says, hey, Massacre Manor is visible. So they maintain safety by keeping the manor invisible. And now the things keeping the manor invisible are failing. In the next, that chapter ends, and then the next chapter we're back with Evie and Tristan, and they are in the sky. They are in a piece of sky. They fell down a hole and landed in a piece of sky. So she's like hopping around on clouds, and he's getting mad at her for not caring about her well-being. He calls her naive. Being a cynic doesn't make you wise. It makes you a coward. Yeah, but like, you are dumb and infantilized. Okay. And so they're both mad at each other, and it says, don't find his murderous rage so entrancing, Evie. It's realism. It's knowing people and the elements well enough to realize that they are always against you. I don't want you hurt. I don't want you to die, which is very fucking frustrating when you act in ways that could easily accomplish both. Oh, this isn't condescension. This is protectiveness? Ugh, stop. You are the most frustrating person I've ever met, and I worked with hardened criminals and interns. What hardened criminals do you work with other than yourself?
They call me Prison Mike.
What? Who? Can list them. List them, please. I would like to hear from them. Maybe they can shed some light on how the fuck your office works. I wouldn't be so frustrating if you didn't incense me so. I've incensed you? What do you think you've done to me? I annoy you. Oh, no, you're confused. See, you annoy me. You confused him and I fear. And so she's like, I've incensed you completely. His lips were nearly on her when the blue sky-like barrier found them around them began to shake. So they were this close to kissing, okay? He said, you have completely incensed me. He said the words, and yet they still pretend that this never happened. And they're like, oh my God, I feel like he just hates me. He was about to kiss you, and he said you've completely incensed him. I don't understand how you could possibly think anything other than what it has been stated. What do you mean?
Hey, you either get it or you don't. And I don't.
I got new neighbors and I feel like I haven't even talked to them yet and they probably already hate me because I have been yelling about this book for hours. And of course, the beast from the story had revealed itself at the most inopportune moment. It says, yep, so inopportune. They were gonna smooch. What a bummer. Don't worry, the creature talks. Perfect. Who disturbs me? At this point, you should be fearing for your life, right? You shouldn't be finding ways to be thinking about the fact that you're horny. Right? Not Tristan. He needed to remain fixated on the monster's horns, its death-like stare, not on the gasp that had sounded out of Sage's lips. He'd gone too far. What? He'd gone far too long without betting a woman. And of course, when asked who disturbs me, Evie cups her hands around her mouth and screeches like she was speaking to an elderly grandparent. Evie, Sage! I'm dying inside. His magic doesn't work here, so he can't protect them. So she says, what's your name? I have no name. I bet she's gonna name it though. But she can't name it Fluffy because she already named the dragon Fluffy. So she'll probably named it like, I don't know, Silly Goose or something ridiculous. I'm a part of this world and by natural law I can take no name. Well, that's a silly rule. Who came up with that? Sage, Tristan whispered, do you remember the time that I confiscated those mushrooms from the interns? This is beginning to resemble that. She scrunched her nose. Again, the rules were made by the architects of this world, the creatures, gods you called them. Anyway, she starts complimenting the creature, which is what she always does. She turns up the compliments. She's going to do this later with some trolls at a bridge. She's like, I love the trees that you have here. So cute. And the creature's like, basically like, I like you. I don't like him. We're here for a vial of Stardust. We need it to find someone who's lost. Someone who can help us fulfill Renadon's story. You want to fulfill Renadon's story? Tristan Maverine. It knows his name. It took you long enough. I know all names. I know all things as nature does. Do you know my mother then? Nura Sage? In the middle of this, by the way, they are both still thinking about how horny they are. Like it's like mid-conversation and she's like, never had angering someone felt so sensual, so wanting so. This needed to stop or she was going to pin him to his desk. Ugh. Read the room. Read the literal sky room that you are in. Read the room. Please prioritize. I am sorry, Evangeline Sage. I cannot interfere in human affairs. This cave is no enchantment, but a piece of the world and sky that I've stolen and hoarded as my own. The rest of the creatures have moved on to paint another realm, but I remain here. The shift has already begun. You, Tristan Maverine, with all your great power, should feel it too. Your magic is slipping. Humans have become greedy, wielding the magic like it is a thing to manipulate instead of a partner. The human desire to take and rarely seek to give. The magic of this world knows this and is beginning to hide to protect itself. The book was written to save it when that time comes. And he's like, but his magic wasn't hiding. Not from her. What could that mean? So then the creature pulls a vial from the air, tosses the glittery substance to the ground in front of them. Oh my God. I've already had one book this year talk about like semen being fucking starlight and glitter, and I'm still not. Anytime I hear vial of glitter, I'm like, great, it's glitter come again. A token for the kindness man so often lacks. A rare gift harvested from the stars themselves. Stardust to help you guide your way to what you seek. For the daughter of wishing stars. And that was so fucking literal. So literal. I was like, you must be joking. For the daughter of wishing stars. She doesn't ask what this means, but it's pretty fucking obvious that, oh, my mom had starlight magic. My mom is missing. I've been wishing on stars. My mom is a star that I've been wishing on. And Evie it just goes in one ear and flies out the other at breakneck speed. Why do you allow the legends to paint you as a carnivorous monster when you are merely protecting this cave? Why do you allow the legends to spin you in such a light? Oh wait, that's Tristan asking. You know as well as I do, Tristan Maverine, that humans demonize what they cannot understand. It isn't our job to educate them, just to live the way we're meant to. with the knowledge that being called a monster does not make you one. All right, so they leave the cave, they leave the creature, they have a vial of glitter come, sorry, Stardust, and Evie has a hint, and so should Tristan by, standing right next to her, that she's the daughter of a wishing star, and yet they just let this go in one ear and out the other, and neither of them clock that shit. And of course, for some reason, the creature doesn't just say it outright. He hinted at it, and then we forget about it until the exact opportune moment, which is something that the last book did too, except worse, with the whole East Marigold thing. So they go and they find their friends back in the forest who, they left to go into the cave. They left their friends. And it says, she saw her dearest friend pinned to the ground with a sword to his throat. The valiant guard had found them. And I'm like, Blade? Blade is her dearest friend? Since fucking when? When did that happen? Point it out to me. So of course Evie is flirting with the guard, just like she got the creature to swoon over her. She's flirting with guards too, and now the guards are nice to her. The guards are after the Stardust. Dark shadows pulled at her feet. The boss's magic. Dark shadows, huh? See, a minute ago it was gray mist. A book ago it was gray mist that found weak spots. Now it's dark shadows that are death magic. Wow, we are really escalating. This was the power that rumored to be strong enough to rip apart homes, rip apart bodies. She swallowed, watching it play with the laces of her shoes. Oh my god, how cute! There's a fight. The smell of charred flesh permeated the air, and it says, ew, Evie pinched her nose. Finish the villain, says one of the captain of the guards. Do it now. And then another knight shows up and he's like, I'm not gonna help, because it's her informant, aka her brother. Wait, I know you, Tristan said after they've won the fight. Of course, they always win the fight. I'm honored you remember. It was my first week as a knight. Is this her brother or is this a different guy? I don't fucking know. The point is, one of these knights is her brother. And he had gotten jealous at Evie talking to her own brother before he knew it was her brother, because all he does is get jealous. Later, he's gonna get jealous of Becky's siblings. Later, he's also gonna get jealous of a guy that her brother just makes up, because all Evie's gonna do is scrunch her nose, and all Tristan is gonna do is get jealous. We just do the same thing over and over. Do you think this book has a plot? Why would you ask such a silly question? This is a wild goose chase. Don't you love geese? The book's hoping you will. So it flashes back to 2 weeks previous when Evie and Gideon meet in the forest and he becomes her informant. She's like having a panic attack over Tristan being gone because he was still in the dungeon at this point. And she's like, I'll get him back. I'll go back to Terra. Wait, wrong media. And he shows up and he's like, I'd like to assist with that if I could. What in the Deadlands? She punches him in the face, says, we thought you were dead for 2 years. You're the knight who messed with his magic. She sinks to her knees in the grass. Twice. Mother's magic was unstable and strong. I was knocked practically into another dimension. Like actually in another dimension for a section. For what? Oh, for a second. Oh my god, I've been filming forever. But then I landed somewhere in the vicinity of the Gleaming Palace with practically burned off clothing and no memory of who I was or what I was doing there. Memory loss? You expect me to believe nobody in the Valiant Guard barracks recognized you when father worked so closely with the king? The king did. Okay, and your dad just didn't care enough to get you back? He called me Gideon the first time he met me. My memory started coming back around 5 years later in jagged bits. Even when it all returned, I never revealed that it had, and the king didn't reveal anything about my past to me either. So you just let him call you Gideon, didn't ask, is that my name? Your dad didn't care? And everybody, and this is kind of a small area. Nobody else recognized you? Not a single other soul, even though the Valiant Guard that you were joining employs your father? What? This is so, the suspension of disbelief you would need to read this and just be like, sure, is something that I cannot possibly fathom a person having. I don't get it. I don't understand how you read these things and go, okay, sure. It literally doesn't make sense. What it's asking me to believe is happening with Gideon literally makes no fucking sense. That's not a plot hole, it's a plot crater. This is the most heinous act I've seen anyone pull, and I've watched my boss cut someone's tongue out for eating all the vanilla candies. You've watched Tristan cut somebody's tongue out and there was no consequences for this? Is this really what I'm being asked to believe? Okay, sure. He's like, I've come to help you get him back. And she's like, all right, I need to die. I need to die to get in there. You're going to have to help me with that. And he's like, okay, but I need sanctuary when all of this is done. I need a safe place to go. Why did he stay in the Valiant Guard? Who knows? Could he have gotten out? Who knows? I don't know. I don't understand that. This doesn't make any fucking sense. Tristan is still mad because, I don't know, Gideon didn't do enough or did stuff that were not good decisions as regarding to like Tristan's capture and shit. And Evie's like, well, I put aside my feelings about him for you. I've been planning on leaving the guard for years, Gideon says, and I would never hurt my sister. They find out, Tristan and company find out that the Manor's like cloaking barrier is becoming faulty, so they're gonna have to deal with that. And also, on Tristan's desk is Evie's journal, open to the page of him and her in a precarious position. The drawing, the sketch, the kissing, the horror. Sage, the villain, held up the notebook with a white knuckle grip. Oh Jesus, I can't read anymore. What in the Deadlands is this and why was it on my desk? This is you, correct? Sir, I have the Stardust vial in my pocket. Should we, get to work on using it for my mother? The clock's ticking and the baby Givla is growing. And he's like, this is you. Who is this? And her brother walks in and goes, oh, that looks like Terrence McChallis. Terrence McChallis. Wow, great name.
Crentist.
Your dentist's name is Crentist.
Terrence is the object of affection for every woman in our village, though if I recall, he only ever had eyes for Evie. Terrence McChallis.
Sounds a lot like dentist.
He had his torture face on. Yeah, because he's jealous about Terrence McChallis. Definitely real last name. It's like Carlos being like, who are you texting? And I'm like, it's Terrence McWaterbottle. So by the way, her dad is still in the dungeon downstairs and she has not been to see him yet. It hurt too much to say it, to think of him at all. It felt like her chest had been cracked open and all the pain was spilling out onto the floor in front of everybody. Tears rolled down her cheek. At this rate, there should be an incident board for her tears. It's been 0 days since Evie's last sob.
We run a no-nonsense office.
Wow, good one. So Tristan kicks everybody out because he's Terrence McChivalrous. Some guy named Damien who works for the villain. I don't remember him ever coming up before. Maybe he did, who knows? Or maybe it's another death magic situation. But some guy named Damien is like saying something shitty about her brother Gideon. And she says, if you ever say something about my brother again or threaten him again, I will carve out your heart with my dagger. And so he calls her a two-faced bitch. Talking to her sister, Lissa knows that she has an inkling that their dad was never sick with the mystic illness, which again, that name is so utterly ridiculous. She's like, I knew it. I should have told you. I saw Dada, or Papa. Dada is what my kids call my husband. I saw Dada. I saw Papa leave all the time when you were at work. He didn't think I'd notice. What do you mean you didn't think? What were you doing? What was he doing? He was just leaving in the middle of the day? I should have told you. He wouldn't have been able to hurt you if I had told you. He was like powdering his face and he was acting sicker when you were home. And she's like, well, your job was just to be a little girl and I'm supposed to take care of you. And Lissa's like, well, who's going to take care of you? Give you one guess. Her future daddy boyfriend. By the way, she notices that she has lost the vial of Stardust already because she has about all the competence of a pigeon.
The pen delivery went amazing, and now I've got all these pens just waiting to be unpacked. But Pam did not tell me to unpack the pens.
So then in the night, the vial of Stardust is rolling down the hall, and chasing after it is Tristan. The dust wants to be used. I can't spend the night dealing with it, doing this shit. Perhaps we should just use it on the letters, her mom's letters now, instead of waiting until morning. They're in my bedchamber. And she says, then we'll go to your bed. Oh, cute. Your bedchamber, not your bed. I would never go to your bed, sir. And so then, of course, there's a comment about sharing a bed with Terrence McChallis. And then, of course, like I said, we are working towards them eventually having sex and him being like the best lover to ever love, the best dick to ever dick down. And we reiterate again that her former partner, Rick, was disappointing. Every time I was with Rick, when we were intimate, I just felt so lonely and unsatisfied after. I don't think I want to be with someone like that again until I'm sure they can give me everything I want. Anyways, great. They go to his room and he has a nightlight because don't forget, while she's afraid of ladybugs, he's afraid of the dark, which honestly, I am also. So at least that's one relatable thing in this book. And she squeals, book's words, over the nightlight, which is a tiny lantern. Okay, sure. And he's thinking, all he needed was Neurosage, and then he could enact the prophecy. He'd find a tiny patch of land with butterflies and sunshine and send Sage where she belonged, away from him. Her back was to the fire, the light illuminating her from behind, turning her entire nightgown sheer. I am malicious. I am evil. I am feared, he thinks to himself, trying to calm down the rising tension, if you will. Are you all right? I'm thinking about death, he says. And he asks her, Sage, do you have any enchantress or siren lineage in your family? I'm not sure I want to know what prompted that question. You definitely don't, he says. And at this point, I'm just wondering, why are we all pretending? Am I supposed to be in on this game of pretending that I wasn't there when you guys admitted to each other that you find each other, what was it, beguiling or something, and almost kissed? We're just pretending that never happened? We're not going to even think about it? Because they're not even thinking about the fact that that definitely 100% happened, let alone talking about it. Okay. So they use the Stardust, and the dust turns the letters from her mom into a glass map. Sure. Okay. One area of the map was marked by a 5-pointed star, and it's on the Heart Village. So they're going to go to the Heart Village, which this is starting to remind me of the 10th Kingdom, which I love. I wish that this book was more like the 10th Kingdom. Unfortunately, this book is ridiculous. And he's like, all right, we'll leave at the week's end. And she's like, well, why not tomorrow? Isn't time of the essence? He's like, I have things I need to look into tomorrow. And certainly hoping that they are the wards, because again, your barrier between you and the outside world is failing, but okay. That issue just disappeared up to this point. She makes fun of him for having a million pillows on his bed, and then she finds that he has her scarf, the scarf that she was wearing when they first met, and she handed it to him and said, for the blood, your evilness. Oh wait, no, he has the scarf. She doesn't know that he has her scarf yet. She finds it eventually, and I just want to point out to you that this is like literally a Taylor Swift lyric. He keeps my old scarf from that very first week because it reminds you of innocence and it smells like me. Oh my God. Ew. Not ew to the Taylor Swift song. Ew to the reminds you of innocence being way too close to this book. The next chapter is in Gideon's POV, the brother, and he's like amazed that the villain knows everybody by name and what their job function is. Unlike King Benedict, who in Gideon's first chapter was shown to not know the difference between the names of the other knights he worked with. Wow. Really working hard to beat you over the head with the fact that Tristan is the better guy and King Benedict bad and evil. But Gideon's up walking around the palace, and he's not supposed to be because Lyssa, their younger sister, this book is giving me heartburn. Their younger sister doesn't know that Gideon's alive. He's asked, why didn't you come back? And he says, I think about that a lot, and I don't really believe there is a very good reason. At the time, I felt like I couldn't leave, and then I suppose I was too afraid to face all that I'd left behind. Okay, but like none of it was your fault? You were sent into another dimension and then sent directly to the palace. How convenient. And then you just walked up and joined the malevolent guard with half burnt off clothes, I guess. You were told your name, never asked about it, and then you just, couldn't get out of the guard, even though your dad also works for the guard? Why didn't we tell Gideon who he was? I don't understand any of this. None of this makes any fucking sense. And so he actually talks to Lyssa. She's like, Evie was afraid too. She had to do everything by herself. Anyway, cutting into this conversation is Keeley, the captain of the Malevolent Guard, who lets us know that Damien, the guy who was mean to her earlier, or mean to her brother, or both, is dead now. Great. Tristan can cut out tongues for people eating candy, and that's not a problem, but nobody can say anything mean to Evie, I guess? I don't get it. And back to Gideon, it says, he could have told Lyssa and Evie of their father's manipulation of him, how Griffin and the king had abused Gideon's own magic to hurt their mother, but he didn't. He didn't talk about this. Why didn't he, go find a family friend? I don't know. I don't fucking know. Go after his mom even? Who fucking knows? He just stayed working for the Valiant Guard. I guess. I don't know. So they're on their way to the Heart Village, and of course, who gets brought up for the second time in this series entirely, because Helena never got brought up in the first book. My cousin Helena has been to the Heart Village quite a few times. When she wrote to me about it, she said it was a place of innovation and progress. Wow. I guess we're about to see Helena, huh? Because we're really being hit over the head with it. So they need to go cross a bridge, and there's bridge creatures that you have to talk to in order to cross the bridge. And Evie was supposed to be the one to talk to them because Tristan, there's bad blood between him and the bridge creatures, but Evie literally smells a flower that makes her drunk. And they're like, we'll just come back, but it's too late. The creatures already saw them, and they're like, you must answer the questions. Sage hiccuped, then promptly giggled at said hiccup. Oh, how cute. She scrunched her nose and leaned away. Oh my God, 2 for 2. Somehow they have sea glass for hair, which sea glass is literally like glass that has been sort of like not smoothed over, but the opposite from the ocean. I'm not really sure how you turn that into hair. I don't know what I'm supposed to be visualizing. Anyway, it's this family of creatures, not trolls, but bridge creatures. And they're like, oh, she's drunk. She has to answer the question without any help.
She's gonna be like, what is the best war to do? And I will just be like, duh.
The question, I am a terror many try to hide. I am a secret that no one will find. I am only used by the brave. When issued properly, I will save. Sage is stumbling around and she ends up in Tristan's arms, bridal style, but still answers the question. The answer is the truth. Of course it is. When you've been lied to so often, the truth becomes easier to discern. And of course they're welcomed into the Heart Village, but Tristan has to give up his magic to go in, but he doesn't tell anybody this because of course it's his cross to bear because he's so broody. It says that they won't allow such destruction anywhere near our citizens. And I'm like, is his magic destructive? I thought it was shadows, then it was mist, then it was just stuff that seeks out where people's weak spots are. Then now in this book, it's getting called death magic. I don't know since when. Is it destructive? And if so, how? Can we get an example of it being destructive beforehand? Nope. Apparently not. So she's giddy, twirling in her pretty dress. Book's words. They talk about the fact that he's upset finding out that she faked her death using the sleeping fruit. There are 2 cures to the sleeping death fruit. One is like an actual antidote and the other is a lie, which is like a kiss of true love. Oh my gosh. Really beating us over the head with the answers that are going to come later that are supposed to be big twists. This book is one of the biggest examples of hand-holding the reader I have ever seen. I have never seen a book think so hard that the reader cannot be counted on to find these clues organically. It really has to push them upon you. It's sort of like in a movie where you know that something important is going to happen because randomly it'll zoom in on something that it wants you to see and you're like, why would it show me that jewelry box? Like that was so random. Like obviously now the jewelry box is going to be important. That's this book, except not just with clues, but also with feelings. When it's talking about how the characters are going through something or realizing something, it's really beating you over the head with exactly how to feel about it. It doesn't let you come to these realizations on your own about characters and their feelings and their journeys. It tells you very blatantly exactly how to feel, leads you all the way there and then says, and did you get that? And it's exhausting as an adult to read books like this. I understand context and symbolism and clues. You don't have to beat me over the head with them. I'm an adult. Anyway, the whole clue thing leads us into a conversation where he's like, no woman would be able to love me. I'm the villain. Which, of course, we're just going to keep getting hammered over the head with how he's incapable of being loved or whatever. So then a bunch of men in an array of costumes, it says, a flyer in one of their meaty hands saying, only this flyer didn't have the usual cartoonish depictions of her boss. That was the villain's true face, almost exactly, and worse, his true name. Wanted, villain revealed, Tristan Maverick, reward 1,000 gold pieces. We caught the villain. Wait. Back up. Why now? Why right now? Why right now has the king decided to do this when he could have done this all along? Answer isn't none. We don't have an answer. We don't know why the king would do this. And the answer is because the king doesn't have a reason. The reason is because we needed something very, very convenient to get us to the next scene. We needed a way for these people to know exactly what Tristan looked like so that we could lead to Evie's cousin Helena being introduced. It has nothing to do with the king at all. It doesn't justify its movements at all. It just does things so that we can get to the next place. Okay, I can't be in a dress anymore. I'm so uncomfortable. And I changed into a sleep token shirt. All right, so they get abducted by this band of merry men in costumes, and they're like, we can pay you the reward amount. The villain has been stealing from nobles for more than a decade. More than a decade? I thought it was just a decade. And has amassed a fortune from doing odd jobs, we'll call them.
And I'm his helper. It's so fun.
They were hired out mercenary missions, but these goons didn't need to know. I need to know. I wanted to know about that. That would have helped me greatly in understanding what was going on here. I don't know what these people do at all. So back at the manor, Becky and Gideon are talking, and he's like, you remind me of somebody that I met when I was working for the Valiant Guard. When the king traveled south for a diplomacy meeting for a powerful family, once again, just hitting us over the head. She says, I have no experience with powerful families, which is like literally a lie. So back with Evie and the villain, Evie says, do you think you could get one of your hands up my skirt? And he's like, what? She's like, to get the dagger. He grabs her dagger, which is the same one that was connected to her wound in the back, her shoulder or whatever. And he's like, does it burn you when you touch it? And she says, no, it feels good when I hold it, like it's warming me. So then in walks the person who they're supposed to talk to, who's keeping them captive, and it's Helena, her cousin. It's been a long time, little cousin. I work here, her cousin says, and then you find out she doesn't just work there, she runs the joint, whatever fucking joint they're at. Evie's like, was my mom here? Helena says, yes, she was. She was here for a time. So then Evie starts guessing things, by the way, and guessing incredibly correctly, which is bonkers because she's like, Tristan, isn't this a protection gold ink bargain? So you'd always know that I was in danger? And he's like, how did you know? She says, I guessed and Claire confirmed. Okay, but you didn't guess until after you guys had a mole in the office and where everybody else either has no employment bargain, which begs the question, why does she? Or has a green employment bargain, which begs the question, why is hers gold? You weren't asking basic questions then, but you're guessing things now? I'm supposed to believe you're smart, but you don't ask basic questions? I don't think so, bitch. Do you hate me for keeping it from you? Do I hate you for protecting me instead of putting ink on my body that will kill me? Oh yes, to the gallows with you, you deviant monster. You must be joking. Okay, so you do think that it's evil for him to mark his employees as long as that employee is not you? So that begs the question, are the other employees marked? And if so, do you find him evil for that? Or do they all have no marks? Which begs the question, why did you ask why you had to have an employment bargain that they don't? What are we doing? Anyway, they are stuck. The room's like filling with water or something. And they think they're gonna die, and she's like, please kiss me. This isn't his POV at this point, and of course he thinks that he's an evil, horrible person, and so now he's like, debating like, do I or do I keep protecting her from me? Why should he hold back? If she wanted reprieve in these final moments, why should he not give it? She couldn't know what that small request was doing to him, how desperately he wanted to. And then he's like, wait, I feel drunk. She was drunk. Is she still drunk off that flower? He couldn't kiss her if she's still drunk. So he's like, I can't. She feels terribly rejected, despite the fact that he literally said that they almost kissed before, and he was like, I find you so beguiling, or whatever he said. Anyway, so Kingsley the Frog jumps in, the rest of their cohorts find them, and they're saved! So they go back to talk to Helena, who locked them in a room. She was like, I was just hoping that you guys would kiss, or whatever the hell, because, everybody's just out to set them up, I guess, just like all the plot conveniences are also out to just set these two people up. And while they're talking to Helena, she's still thinking about the fact that she asked him to kiss her and he rejected her. And I'm like sitting here and the text says, not now, she begged herself. That's not just you begging, I'm also begging you to please stay on task. So then something starts happening with Evie. Oh God. In response to them being in like semi-danger, she sort of turns into, I don't really understand what's happening here, to be honest. It says that like the danger ignited something inside of her. Her scar shoulder tingled, but instead of just the sensation, her whole shoulder glowed. And I'm like, okay, so she has starlight magic then, like I assumed in the last book, but I don't know. Like genuinely, I finished this book and I don't know whether or not Evie has starlight magic. I don't really know what's going on with the dagger and the shoulder and the light. I don't know. It didn't get answered. And you know who didn't ask any questions about it? All of the characters. For some reason, see, if this were happening to me, this isn't a symptom I would ignore. I would call my doctor, but not Evie. Nope, not Evie. So it's like super bright and everybody's like covering their eyes and the dagger is also glowing, but I guess her shoulder is too. And then nobody asked any questions about this. Okay, sure. And she's like, it's over, Helena. I was gonna let you go anyway. I just wanted to see how you'd fare locked up together for a little while. She's like, I was never gonna sell you out to the king. The king's the reason our theater is nearly bankrupt. And I'm like, this feels like information that a guy called the villain would know, or his assistant would know, and therefore try to use said information to their advantage. But I guess not. He's been rumored to be pushing the bounds of magic for years. Clearly the rumors are true, and now we all must pay the price. What is with this series and the rumors? This book's world sure does have an awful lot of rumors that turn out to be completely 100% true, and yet do not affect the common people's movements throughout the world at all, especially seeing as the villain has in fact been to this particular village before, this really doesn't make any sense. There are whispers in the Heart Village about Benedict. Not everyone is as loyal as you think they are. Benedict has destroyed families by tampering with magic, and if you want my opinion, I think he plans to steal it all. I am so confused. How is it that Tristan does not already know this? Try to rally the people, whatever. It's fine, whatever. Benedict's desperation to fulfill Renaudon's story. Could it be a ruse to mask his true intention? Was the villain merely a scapegoat to hide his own evils? So then Helena pulls out a pouch, conveniently says, Aunt Nura, Evie's mom, left this behind. I should have just sent it. Yeah, you should have. But she asked me to wait for the right time. I suppose that's now. Okay. The day before she disappeared again, she handed it to me with this note. Wow, how incredibly convenient. Geez, wow. So Helena's like, oh, make sure that Evie has it. And if Evie ended up dead, what then? Great plan, y'all. I may not be willing to turn you in, but there are plenty here in the Heart Village who would. You should check the house. I always had a feeling she'd try to go back there. And Evie's like, I would have seen her if she came back home. Just because you didn't see her doesn't mean she wasn't there. The dagger vibrated in her hand, her scar answering it, like they were both warning her not to creep too close to the darkness warring in her heart, like they were urging her to hold on to herself, on to hope. Do you see what I mean? This book is like, we must tell the reader all the answers about the feelings. We must tell them overtly the feelings in the most clunky way possible. And the next chapter starts and it says, once again, they were without any leads. I'm sorry? What? What do you mean?
You are never going to find them. Really? I'm going to enjoy this. Give me the leads. Where are the leads? Give me the leads! I'm still enjoying it. Where are they?
I feel like I've been swimming through a sea of leads. A sea. You guys just don't ask the plausible questions. Ask the logical questions is the thing I am constantly saying about books. This book is the reason why I say that, because this book doesn't ask the logical questions. What are you talking about? Leads have been handed to you left and right. All you have are leads. You are rich with leads, and yet you don't ask logical questions. Why is my shoulder glowing and the dagger at the same time? I don't know. Why did that guy call me the daughter of wishing stars? I don't know. Oh my God. You have so many leads. You're just too stupid to pick up on them. You're swimming in them. I alone am navigating the waters of all these leads you have dropped me in, and I navigate alone. I'm gonna lose it. Tatiana then starts talking about how the wards, they need, I think this is what happened because I sort of lost the train here, but apparently Tatiana, the healer, and Claire, Villain's sister, have been looking into fixing the wards on Malevolent Manor, and there's an enchantress who is supposed to be able to help, except it says the enchantress resides in the Southern Kingdom now. They went to go find out about her at the Heart Village. The enchantress resides in the Southern Kingdom now, imprisoned by the king and queen for killing the crown prince. But before it says that, it says the innkeeper said the enchantress who resided in the village hasn't been seen in 11 years. And then it says she resides in the Southern Kingdom now, imprisoned by the king and queen. Why didn't we just say, we didn't need to say she hasn't been seen in 11 years. We know where she was and where she's been seen. She's in prison in the Southern Kingdom. What? And apparently the enchantress has a daughter. None of this comes up in this book. All of this is for the next book, I assume. The enchantress's daughter is a viable option. She was just a girl. Now she'd be about 20 or so. Oh, great. Bet she'll show up in the next book. With a love interest, probably, and a lot of innuendo. Isn't that fun? The Stardust on their map wore off, and now they're going to need more. The thing that Evie's mom left with her cousin is a corner piece of a gold frame. And there's a note that says, "Find me here, Hasibsi. I'll be safe. I'll be with my friend." Now, if I were raised by this woman and I had memories of her, what I would do is I would simply ask myself, who did Mama say that her friends were? And instead, we just don't do that. I guess she just assumes that her mom had no friends. I don't know. Like if my mom said, "I'll be with my friend," I'll be like, all right, I'm running through the list of friends my mom had. Eileen, Kelly, that one lady who had that really cute kitten when I was like 9. I'm running through the list of friends, right? not this woman. Nope. We have to go on a wild goose chase just to find the friend who is interconnected with the other characters. That's right, because this is Once Upon a Time, except less cool. But before we even find the friend, we have to find the maker of the frames, even though the frames were literally in her house. They just end up being in her house. So they get into a fight, her and Tristan, about whether or not she can go to the market to look for the frame guy. He's like, you aren't needed for this. And it says, she was his assistant. Not being needed by him was robbing her of her purpose. It was cruel. Oh, brother. So then she's like, fine, if there's any way I can assist you, you let me know. And it says, she turned and glided from the room. She glided from the room angrily, like, I don't know, kids on wheelie shoes or some shit. So then Sage doesn't talk to Tristan for 3 days. And then they do talk, and she's like, I'm going out with the guards. I'm going out with such and such. And he's like, one of those dudes is a philanderer. And she's like, good. And of course, he's jealous. That's right. So then he goes to the market by himself, and he doesn't think about the fact that he is just as easily identifiable, if not more so, than Evie is. So this is really stupid, and they could have sent somebody else. They have a ton of people who work for him, but for some reason, he had to go. Evie's ex-boyfriend is at said market, and of course, he sends his magic after the guy, and he uses his magic to strike a point in the guy's knee where he has a weak spot, which... sweet, cute. The death magic is really just hurt your knee magic. Awesome. So then he stumbles upon an old lady who's like, do you want your face painted? And he's like, wow, she does incredible art, because Tristan is nothing if not a nice guy who is super nice to little old ladies. But don't worry, he's an evil villain with death magic, I guess. So she paints his face as a wolf, and he's like, wow, I look so much like a wolf. This is incredible. And he says, I am of the belief that art is the world's most valuable commodity. Bitch, since when? Because like I said just a few chapters ago, the thing about the cousin Helena being a part of like a troupe of like theater, and the king like causing her to make less money, and that's why she turned on them, that's something that Tristan could have known and capitalized on, especially if he is of the belief that art is the world's most valuable commodity. Characterization, continuity, what? What are those? Oh, I'm starting to do Mickey Mouse voice. It's happening. So the old lady winks at him when she sees the flyer with his face on it, so she definitely knows. And he asks her, do you know of a vendor that sells portrait frames? She's like, yeah, Mr. Gully, he's up that way. And a young woman is at Mr. Gully's stand. And I knew it was Evie immediately, even before the text said it was, because it took the time to not just say it was a young woman, but a cutout dip in her waist revealed a soft patch of skin. And we wouldn't have Tristan looking at any woman's body unless it was Evie Sage. Which is ridiculous. So, yep, here we go. So Evie's POV now, listening to the text tell us Evie Sage's greatest affliction in life was spite. She'd spitefully learned to sew perfectly when her brother had called her patchwork hopeless, and she found a job working for a villain when the employment market told her it would be impossible.
I never really thought much about being more than a receptionist, but why? Because I happened to answer a help wanted ad to be a receptionist?
That's not what happened in the last book. She didn't find a job working for the villain when the employment market told her it would be impossible. She found a job and she gave it to somebody else. In fact, we're about to be reminded of this in a second. The employment market was not impossible. And also that line sounds like we're saying it would be impossible to get a job with the villain. I don't get it.
What if the ad had been for a CEO? Or for a brain surgeon?
So he picks her up over his shoulder like a sack of potatoes. Have you lost your mind? Why would you engage in such reckless, obtuse manner? Please explain. And she says, pleading is beneath you, which is something that he said to her in the previous chapter. She's like, Mr. Gully never met my mother. They pass by Rick, her ex, and she's like, what's going on? And she can see his magic. So she's like, why did you do that? Feeling a strange hum in her dagger and then her scar. So then they go to her house, which they could have just gone there in the fucking first place to go look for the frame. They're looking around her house, and he goes into her room and he reaches into her dresser and he finds something silky and white. And this is like that MTV show where people would go into other people's rooms and start looking around at stuff.
Welcome back to Room Raiders Goes to College.
In here. Poison glow in the dark underwear.
Says, talk dirty to me.
She's like, why didn't you let me go on the mission? He's like, you weren't a wanted woman before. I don't understand why you suddenly have so much concern for my well-being when nothing bad will happen. And he yells at her in all caps, you were dead. I ran into a room at the Gleaming Palace and I saw your corpse. And she's like, but Gideon was supposed to tell you that I wasn't really dead. You told me that he did get that message to you. Why did you lie to me? And I'm like, well, to make the drama last longer, of course, because we're trying to edge the audience forever, making nonsense reasons why these two can't be together. And just miscommunication after miscommunication. And it's just so much damn fun. She's like, you rejected me and now you're taunting me with it. And he's like, I didn't reject you. The request for me to kiss you was made under duress. And he's like, these thoughts, they plague me daily. And she's like, you're comparing me to a plague. And then he kisses her. Tristan supposed there was only so far you could bend something before it broke. See, I'm just thinking about Sleep Token again. But also I'm thinking about my patience. My patience is being bent until it breaks. He loved her. He would loathe himself for taking this taste of her, but not now. I'm sorry, he says. It came true, she said, the first week. The late night in his office. Her wish at the beginning of the book, if you recall. You wished for, your wish was... Yeah, he was her wish. She was wishing that he would kiss her. Correct. So now you know. So now we don't have to pretend that you guys aren't into each other anymore, right? Because you've made out, and she just admitted she's been wanting to do that for a while. And you already said she was beguiling, and you're plagued with thoughts of her, so now we don't have to do this thing anymore, right? Wrong! Wrong. So he's like rubbing hands all over her, and they're making out, and then from outside the door of her childhood bedroom, somebody's like, who's in there? I have a weapon! Chapter 47, Evie was not one for melodramatics, in parentheses, yes she was. Stop. Turns out that it's Malcolm, Tristan's brother, and while they're dealing with Malcolm, she's still thinking about making out with Tristan, of course, because we can never stay on topic. Malcolm admits that he's been staying in her house because the common people found out that Tristan is the villain and Malcolm's brother, and they burnt down his tavern. So then they have the sweet moments together, and Sage starts crying, and Tristan's like, are you crying for the love of God? What do you want from me? This is cute. They're like, well, you can come join us at the manor. Your sister's already there. She decides that she needs to go talk to her dad in the dungeon. So they go back to the manor, and she talks to him, and she threatens him with torture unless he answers her questions. And she's like, there's a painting of two little girls that Mama had before she disappeared. One was clearly her. Who was the other little girl? And where was it painted? Your mother didn't have many friends, and I don't recall any painting. He like plays on her biggest fears, makes fun of her. She snaps. She stabs him in the thigh with her dagger that's somehow connected to her shoulder magically. I want you to tell me what you were doing with my mother. I want you to tell me what you and the king did to her magic. And so then he finally confesses that the other little girl in the portrait, the portrait had her and her mom, and the other little girl is Rena Fortis, which is a ridiculous name. The Fortis family was well known throughout the kingdom as warriors of valor and a line that dated back to the very beginnings of Renadon. She's like, you destroyed my mom. He says, I didn't mean to. She says, I will forget about you. I will move on and be happy, and you will be here, rotting, weak, and alone, with only your valiant honor to keep you warm. And this just reminds me of that scene from Ever After. He's like, well, if you want answers as to what me and the king did to your mother, you can ask your brother about it. So then she starts chasing her brother across Malevolent Manor. This interlude would no doubt be a source of gossip for employees to speculate on, beside the fountain that magically spewed water tucked into the back corner of the office. Wow, cool. There's a water cooler. Great. It says that at the water cooler, all the best rumors started there. Oh, really? All the best rumors? Like the one about Tristan being the king's former apprentice? Like the one about the king wanting to steal all the magic for some devious purpose? Those rumors that don't affect the common people? Okay. I was doing schoolwork in my room when Father first came to me about the king. I was 12 or 13. All magic awakens from a trauma. Mine was awoken after I'd caught that fever from one of my teachers. Father had me training with a specialist in secret. So he has a blocking magic. So he was tasked by the king and his dad to block his own mother's magic. So like every night he would like use his powers to block her magic. Except one night he fell asleep, didn't do it, and when she woke up, her power came out in full force. Now, I don't know how this happened because when she woke up, I was told in the last book that they were like outside and suddenly she was overcome with power. So were the children outside without her? And then she woke up, walked outside, and her power went boom? He's like, it's my fault. What happened to Mother? And don't understand this because it sounds like everybody's mad at Gideon for nothing. Gideon is still alive. Nura didn't kill anybody. And he was a 12-year-old being told what to do by a bunch of grown-ups who were making him suppress his mom's power for safety. For like, they convinced him that he was doing the right thing. I don't know why he kept this from anybody. Anyway, Evie goes to talk to the villain, of course, in his bedroom, of course, and he's doing a plank on the floor.
Planking is one of those things where, hey, you either get it or you don't.
She definitely should have knocked. They talk about the fact that they kissed. Wow, I'm shocked. I don't see why you're so outraged. You kissed me first. It was an accident. Fairly long accident. I demand we revisit it after my mother's found. So she tells him in the painting is Rena Fortis, who is the matriarch of the Fortis family. He's like, well, if your mother is at the Fortis family fortress, oh, for crying out loud, say that 5 times fast, that could be a serious problem. But hold on, we have to deal with the fact that somebody started a fire. And it says she had a terrible feeling that the person responsible was someone else entirely because they're blaming the Valiant Guards. And she just magically knows that it's not the Valiant Guards.
Ryan started the fire!
And it's her little sister. And of course, he was going to kill the person responsible, but since it's her sister, he's not going to. He's so kind to her sister about it, and she calls it the absolute atrocity of kindness he just committed in front of her.
Did you color this pretty picture? No. So then this means nothing to you.
She wanted him to assert herself as the big bad in her life, but it was too late. When have you ever thought that he was the big bad in your life? He had already become too dear in her heart, so dear that losing him would eviscerate her. Also, Lissa has been trying to do all kinds of stuff in the office. She's been doing all kinds of bad stuff. So she started a fire because she was helping the dragon learn how to breathe fire. She also locked Claire and Tatiana in a cupboard to try to get them to get back together. And also she was the one that put Evie's journal on her boss's desk because she knows that Evie is in love with the villain.
Okay, I need you to promise me that you'll be on your best behavior.
I promised other people that I'd be on my worst behavior.
Anyways, moving on from that, we move on to the fact that Rebecca, aka Becky, aka the HR, but also I guess the accountant, is not named Rebecca Airing. Her last name is Fortis. Rena Fortis is Rebecca's mother. And that key that she was so protective over is the key to her parents' house, which apparently her mother confiscated, but also her mom wants her to come back home. I don't get it. Again, Rebecca's grandmother does have the mystic illness, but her mom and her grandma are not the only ones who live there. Rebecca has a bunch of brothers, and some of them are handsome, and Evie scrunches her nose over this. Cute. As soon as the actual home figures out that Tristan is the villain, the house kidnaps him through vines and throws him in the pit of despair. Just kidding. It's the trench. The trench of anguish, not the pit of despair. The trench of anguish. Some of Rebecca's brothers see Tristan and they're like, you're gonna have to do the trench of anguish shit. Sorry. He's like, yeah, well, I'm out here looking for a woman. And it says, aren't we all? Which is, you know.
I'm looking for a girl.
Hey, we all!
Fucking Polar Express up in here. So they're like, you have to be tested by the hands of destiny. Too bad, you have to. Back at the house, away from the pit of despair, Rebecca tells Evie, he will survive, Evie, I'm certain of it. She wasn't, but if there was one thing she couldn't tolerate, it was Evie's sadness. It was the equivalent of watching a baby deer be pushed down by a stiff wind. Sad, helpless, and a little pathetic. Wow. We are never beating the born sexy yesterday trope allegations. So they talk to Rena Fortis, the matriarch of the family, as well as Ramona, who has the mystic illness. They're like, this is Nura Sage's daughter. They're like, okay, so where is Nura? And Rena at first says that she was here. She's away with one of our healers at our second home by the Lilac Sea. She was badly mutilated by magic when she originally came to us, but now that you're here, I'll send word and she'll return at once. Which, this doesn't make any sense because she could have at any point sent for Evie to come to this fortress that nobody can enter without a key. Okay. And I don't know like why Evie wouldn't think, why didn't my mom just send for me and I could have been here with you guys? But no. Turns out Rebecca has been chosen by the house to inherit, and one of her brothers is angry about this, but the land called to her and she called to it. Benedict had seen that gift and an opportunity. Turns out that Rena, her mom, had agreed for her to work with King Benedict, but it hadn't occurred to her to ask what Becky wanted. I let Benedict manipulating me into believing that your magic was the only way to cure your grandmother. I was so desperate then. You know how we repel the crown. It was misguided, but things are different now. I've learned from my mistakes. Right after this, Claire is like, this is a memory plant. And Tatiana says, what's a memory plant? And we don't have the conversation about the fact that Tatiana in book 1 was said to have the ability to like take away memories. Okay, sure. The plants hold memories the way people do. It can even mimic them on occasion. Some people have attempted to use it in the past to siphon magic. This is so heavy-handed. Anyway, her brother Reed runs in, Becky's brother runs in and is like, I think Tristan's dying. And yes, all of these siblings and the mom, they all have names that start with R. It's like a regular fucking Duggar family up in here. So Tristan is in the pit of despair, just kidding, the trench of anguish, and is being psychologically tormented by some monster. He's seeing visions of his parents arguing about him and how the rest of the village whispers about him. He's seeing like when King Benedict sort of gave up on him. He's like, I'll swear I'll give up my magic, come back, I don't want to be evil. Evie's trying to get to him. So the destiny creature in the pit of despair type shit is looking for any ounce of goodness within Tristan worth saving. For some reason, these rich people have a trench of terror that has an age-old creature that looks for the goodness in people. I don't know. No person has ever tried to stop the creature of destiny and lived. Its magic is older than time itself. So the creature will consume him and his soul if it doesn't find any goodness in him. And Evie's like, then I'll give him my goodness. In the trench of terror or whatever, Tristan is seeing a version of Benedict holding a knife to Evie's throat, and then it changes and Evie is pressing up against him and Benedict's gone. He may be the villain, but in this moment he was only a man. And the evil thing masquerading as Evie says, destroy the Fortis family, free the hands of destiny from its cage, and you can have me.
You know what? Imitation is the most sincere form of flattery, so I thank you. Identity theft is not a joke, Jim.
And he says, do you think that I would fall for such an obvious vile trick that this farce could ever compare to the real thing? Because he knows the real Evie, and it's not this creature in the trench of sadness that's old as time. I don't know what we're doing here anymore.
What is going on? What are you doing?
I would sooner take the scraps she lay at my feet than commit myself to a cheap imitation. So then Evie knocks the fake version of herself in the back of the head with a paperweight, I don't know, and says, I'm sorry, did that really hurt? Don't apologize to the ancient monster if you please. She scrunched her nose. Oh, there she is again. But I hit her with a paperweight. You're too late. He's already failed. His dark soul is mine. Take my evil essence and allow her to leave, he says. And Evie's like, here, take my dagger instead. This dagger is magically imbued and weirdly linked to the scar on my shoulder. Yeah, that is weird. Be great if you asked some questions about that. You could probably make me dance like a puppet. And the evil monster flinched away from the dagger, hissing again. Noteworthy, it says. Oh, is it noteworthy? Are you gonna make a note of it? Today, perhaps? Are we gonna talk about it? No? Okay. Anyway, they get away. Of course they do. Stakes? Where? Her and Becky finally have a conversation where they talk about how much they admire each other because she admires Becky's rule setting. Becky, without you, I likely would have died 12 times over by now. That's just because you're a baby deer. When you first began working in the office, you were unprofessional, disorganized, and chaotic. Becky, it should have been you. You're more qualified than I am to have this job. Evie, don't tell me you believe that stupid rumor. Did it come from the water cooler? I never wanted your job. Could you imagine? Plus, there was no villain's assistant position until he met you. Before you, the only thing that man had been searching for was solitude and quiet. Are you sure? Because I feel like he was also searching for revenge, which is why you all have a job, right? Right? The day he hired you, he ordered custom chairs for his office, but very discreetly, but I saw the report, and he made a note that they needed to be comfortable for a woman of short stature. Number one, we're always talking about how teeny tiny Evie is. Number two, so are you the HR person or are you in fact the accountant? And number three, oh, so we're admitting this happened the day he hired her. So we are admitting it's insta-love via office purchases. Good, great. So then Evie decides to go get training with Rebecca's many brothers, all with R names. And who should show up but Tristan? He was watching the scene unfold, sweaty, raw, and perfect, his molten gaze locked onto where Reed's hands were still molded against Evie's hips. I'm going to kill all of you, he says. Not if I kill you first.
I have cause. It is because I hate him.
Your assistant lacks coordination and any sense of finesse. Apprentice. Oh, right. Evie got called his apprentice on like a note that says, this is the apprentice to the villain. And she goes, I got promoted.
I want to thank God because God gave me this Dundee. And I feel God in this Chili's tonight.
And she was so happy that Tristan's like, okay. And that was it. That's how she became the apprentice to the villain. We're almost done. We're at like 75, 80% through, and she just became the apprentice to the villain because somebody accidentally called her that. It's like we remembered almost at the end, oh shit, we're entitling this apprentice to the villain. Think. How do we squeeze that in here? Apprentice, Tristan corrected coldly. If you're going to address her like she isn't here, I caution you to at least do it with her proper title. And then somebody tells him, I think it's very gallant that you want to ensure that she's properly recognized for her advancements. I don't know how she got this advancement in the first place, but okay. There's clearly a great respect and love between you. And he, out of nowhere, just decides to be a broody little bitch and say, I am the villain. I do not have time or patience for love, and I certainly would not pursue such a useless emotion with someone who works for me. Where the fuck is this coming from?
I declare bankruptcy!
It would be nonsensical for the villain to find love. Raphael says, I'm certain one couldn't find someone more difficult to love. And Evie says, I didn't find it difficult at all. She admitted she loves him. Oh my God. What did you just say? And by the way, her dagger was somewhere and she just compelled it to show up in her hand. They never talk about this. Sage, are you all right? Did I destroy you? Oh, this part he's thinking in his inner monologue, which is not in quotations. Did I destroy you just as destiny thought? What fuck? Said I would. Have I already fulfilled destiny's prophecy? Do you mean, am I embarrassed of unrequited feelings? No, I am not. And since all I am to be is your apprentice, then I demand that my learning begins now. Unrequited, he thinks to himself, which I had to tell you because the book doesn't. What a fucking cosmic joke. Is it a joke if the punchline is my sanity?
You know what? You just have to be there.
I wish I was. I love inside jokes. Love to be a part of one someday.
So of course they're, sparring, because now she's his apprentice, and the first thing you need to learn as the villain's apprentice is sparring. I guess he doesn't do a lot of that, but okay. We just had to have a training montage that turns into them staring at each other while they're heaving breath and talking about her boobs. The top curves of her breasts were peeking out from her corset, of course. Teach me to fight like the villain, she says.
I can always block the blow, or I can counter it with it.
And he's like, no, have the malevolent guards teach you. But then he just teaches her. And then he's like really captivated by her and says things like, what have you done? What enchantment is this? She asks him if he hired her because he feels sorry for her, which is an incredibly hilarious question considering that we were there when she got hired and there was no pity. Do you not recall me telling you I am not in the habit of charity? What makes you think I'd make an exception for you? And she says, you kept my scarf from that very first week because it smells like innocence and it reminds you of me. I stole it. I do it with lots of things. And he won't admit that he kept her scarf from that very first week. So he has her in a chokehold, sleep token. Just kidding. He has her in lock, and he's like, how would you get free? And she kisses him, which I don't think was part of the training. Tristan had asked her how to get free, not how to ruin his fucking life. Oh my God, the drama. It was a distraction. You told me not to think. Anyway, Valiant Guards, as in the King's Guards, show up and they are attacking the Fortress, which is a ridiculous name. Meanwhile, back at the Malevolent Manor, also a ridiculous name, in Gideon's POV, he's flirting with the captain of the Malevolent Guard, which is Keely. For the leader of Brutal Killer, she really was adorable. He supposed that's what made her so dangerous. Sleep token reference. He sees Lissa, his little sister who he barely knows, acting kind of funny. Lissa, is everything all right? She didn't look at him, just at the window with the mysterious depiction of the Book of Prophecy. Apparently that exists in the manor. And she says, it will be. Hey, this is the part where you're like, what you up to? Child in my care? What's happening? I feel like I need to step in as the adult, but I guess not. Anyway, the manor is completely exposed at this point. The entire magical gate comes down. They realize that since the Valiant Guard know that in the next chapter, they realize that since the Valiant Guard know they are at the Fortress, they have been betrayed. Tristan's power comes out, of course. It's treating Evie real nice. There's this weird scene where, once again, when magical stuff happens, I don't really understand what's happening, but a knight aims an arrow for Tristan. Evie goes after it. The dagger was in her hand. It began to glow, as did her scar. The arrow had broken in two when it struck her, but it hadn't even touched her skin. Well, that was a nice little trick, she thought, suddenly wickedly tired, and she, I guess, falls asleep. The villain is dealing with guards, and they are like, more of us are coming, villain, you can't win against the entire Valiant Guard. He's like, huh, that's weird, her dragon, I wish. Her dagger must have protected her. And then they never think about this again, which is bonkers. He's like, Evie, are you okay? They're getting away. And she's like, then why don't you stop them? So he sends his power out and it goes and like grabs these guards and kills them, which I guess now it really is death magic. Who fucking knew?
I bet you didn't think I knew current events.
Not me in the first book, because it never came up. The words death magic, again, are never used in the first book. And then he gets really weak. He's like, I've never gotten this weak after using my magic. Something's wrong with it. Somehow it's making me sick. I can feel it changing. You think it's me? You think it's my fault? You're the only one who could see it, and ever since it revealed itself to you, it hasn't been the same. I can't risk it failing me like that. Without my death magic, I cannot fight Benedict or my enemies. Without it, am I even the villain? And I'm like, okay, but you had magic, this gray mist, before you were the villain. You were villainized because of it, apparently, which is really poorly done in this. And you will be just fine after. Also, you know that the magic is fading. You were told this by the creature in the sky pocket that you were in, so you should know that part of it fading is also probably to blame and not, Evie's fucking fault. Her being able to see it, I don't understand why that would translate in a smart person's mind to, oh, she can see my magic, therefore it's getting worse and that's her fault?
I understand nothing.
What? But instead of being reasonable or, making any sense, he's like, we should keep our distance for this foreseeable future, just in case, just to be sure. They get to the front of Fortress and Evie hears her mother screaming, which I don't know how you would, if I didn't hear my mom for a really long time and I heard screaming, I don't think I would be able to clock that it was my mother. But Evie's built different, I guess. Doesn't ask basic questions, but can definitely identify her mother via screaming. So they run into the Fortress, ridiculous name, and the screaming is actually coming from a flower that Claire had dropped in the corner of the room. It was a memory flower that echoed her mother's screams. Tatiana and Claire had been locked into a room that was full of these plants, and Rebecca's like, what do you mean? We're not supposed to have a bunch of those plants. They're dangerous. My family would never be so reckless. And her brother's like, your mom and the plants. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean any harm, Rebecca, please. We have been aiding King Benedict and fulfilling the prophecy for some time, says her brother. Oh wait, her mom says that. Her brother chastises that. I've been trying to find a cure for my mother. That's not a crime. That's not wrong. And everything I've done has been in service to Renadon and the Fortis line. We've been working to help develop a plant, a hybrid between the memory plant and another rare plant to relieve the burdens of overbearing power, like your mother's, Evie. And they realize, oh, Nura Sage is not coming tomorrow. Your mother was my best friend. I loved her as if she were my own sister. I never sought to hurt another human in my life. Nura had arrived at our gates asking for aid. I knew of the accident. I knew of her power. I knew the king was looking for her too. So instead of turning her over, I tried to siphon her magic away. I wanted to help her and the kingdom. I used the flower on her, but her magic had already been so abused. And so what ended up happening was her mother turned into Stardust, and she has a vial of Stardust that is supposedly all that's left of Evie's mother. She screamed for mercy one moment, and then in the next, the Stardust is all that's left of her. Switch over to Gideon's POV, and he's just thinking about Keeley, the captain of the guard, who just killed a bunch of his former colleagues who attacked Malevolent Manor, and thinking about how hot she is, which, time and place, buddy. But I guess nobody in this world knows how to do that, huh? So it turns out that it was Rebecca's mom who sent for the Valiant Guard, obviously. And she's like, listen, your mom wanted me to give this to you. It was someone else's for a time, and then it was mine, and then I gave it to your mother. But the Valiant Guard is on their way here to arrest Tristan. And Becky's like, one day I will return to my place at Fortis Family Fortress. But for now, I will remain Becky at HR, and I will be happy. So they leave dejected. No Nura, no Starlight, no prophecy, which meant no magic, which would eventually lead to no Renadon. Have they ever thought about leaving? What's holding them here? That's my question. They returned to the manor, and what they found there changed everything. Chapter 77, the villain's POV. The Valiant Guards had nearly conquered the manor at this point. They take the female Givla. They almost kill the male Givla. He gets knocked down. Gideon saves the male Givla. He gets knocked down by knights. He tries to escape, but one of the knights pressed his boot into Gideon's chest, and Tristan's like, I know those boots. But he didn't have time to linger on that. Then why bring it up? Why bring it up? We don't linger on much, do we? So then in the next chapter, it's actually Evie with her foot on Gideon's chest because she stole the boots, or I don't fucking know. Anyway, Lissa was actually trapped in her father's cell because Lissa has been going and visiting their dad. Their dad escaped. Someone had slid a note under Lissa's door from their dad saying that he wanted to see her. He went down there, he locked her in the cell, he left. And so they talk to Lissa about this, and then they fall asleep after they've gotten rid of the Valiant Guards and they've gotten the words back up, but the female Givla is gone. They're gonna have to get her back. So they go to sleep, and then Evie, always late to the party if she arrives at all, shoots up out of bed and says, who in the Deadlands slipped Lissa that note? Yes, that would have been actually my first question. Not something I asked after I fell asleep. But okay, they still need an enchantress in order to fix the wards fully, but he'd refortify the barrier and then marvel at the small fortune he just sent off to his black market gardener, who had offered a rather gracious solution of large thorny hedgerows to be planted all around the manor. If he couldn't hide the manor, he'd make it the most dangerous place in all of Renadon. I'm just frankly surprised that you have not done this sooner. What were we waiting for exactly? So she's like, hey, Tristan, by the way, somebody slipped a note to my sister to go visit my dad, which ended up with him, leaving. This person also might be sabotaging your shipments. And also, he's like, well, hey, since we're sharing things, it might be pertinent for you to know that Kingsley isn't just a magical frog. He was once human. He was turned by an enchantress more than a decade ago, and I've been trying to find a way to turn him back. She's like, I already knew, which is impossible because, again, you don't even ask basic questions yet. I'm being asked to believe that you already knew about this twice in one book? What are we doing? And Evie's like, yeah, I figured it out because Claire has called him Alexander in front of me, and Alexander just so happens to be the Southern Kingdom's prince who died about 10 years ago, coincidentally around the same time you became the villain. And if that wasn't all slap you in the face obvious, you call him by the dead prince's last name. The dead prince's last name is Kingsley. He's like, why didn't you say anything? Why was this enchantress so Deadlands bent on changing a gallant prince into a creature with webbed toes? It wasn't the enchantress's fault. She was merely following orders. Whose orders? My mother's, he says. My mother didn't take too well to how I came out after my time with Benedict. I had returned home for looking for sanctuary, and instead he finds his mom waiting for him along with Claire, and this is the rift that caused the thing between her and Tatiana where their relationship fell apart. Alex Kingsley walks into his house before him, gets turned into a frog by the enchantress. It was supposed to be death, but he's just a frog. And Evie says, what a bitch. Then he says, hey, on the day that we met, didn't you offer your position to another woman, the job that you got an offer for? She's like, yeah, somebody else needed the job more. How did you know about that? And he says the destiny creature in the pit of despair told him about it. Because apparently, and he's not going to tell her this part, there was no older woman that she offered a job to, that she would have had a job. The older woman was one of Destiny's enchanters in disguise. Apparently those exist. Who knew? Not me. Guiding her right into my path. You were always supposed to meet Evie Sage, Tristan Maverick, just as Evie Sage is meant to be your downfall and you her undoing. He had to keep his distance from her lest she ruin him and he her. No more, he was through. Just as soon as he finished one more very important task. So they're having a tea party or something with Lissa, the little girl. She drops the vial and it smashes directly into this oddly shaped crystal that Rebecca's mom gave her, and then the room goes bright. Honestly, once again, I don't fucking understand what's happening here. The magic makes no sense to me. They use the last piece of starlight that they have, and he's like, it looks like a piece of sky. It all struck Evie at once. Every clue along their journey to find her mother. It had been written plainly in front of her the whole time. The daughter of wishing stars. Gee, it sure was written in front of you plainly the whole time, and you didn't ask a single question about it. Great. Great work, Evie. The daughter of wishing stars. We have to go to the caves. I'll explain on the way. I know where our mother is. So they go back to the caves to talk to the creature who says the magic is dying, and with the Givla's capture and fate's consequences can only be worsening. I fear this is only the beginning. She hands him the missing piece of sky that she has from Rebecca. She says, you said you wouldn't interfere with human affairs, but my mother is not human now. Her magic enveloped her. She left behind Stardust because she became a wishing star. And now she will be free, the creature says. So he sends a rush of midnight clouds and it takes Evie's mom out of the sky. You found me, Hasibsi. Turns out she's been watching everything, which makes you wonder if she's been watching Tristan and Evie make out in her house. So the magic is fading. The earth starts quaking. The whole cave goes under, the creature with it. He refuses to abandon the place that he's at, and he's sworn to protect the land. And he's like, save Renadon, save the magic. Think of me when you're with the trees. Cave goes to shit. They take Nura, her mom, back to Malevolent Manor. She's hugging Gideon, and then she explains to everybody that there's 4 parts of the prophecy. I heard Benedict name 4 during one of his meetings. The villain who was once kind, the youth of fate's creatures, which is the Giblas, the wishing starlight, and there is one more. And conveniently, she can't remember what it is, even though she's been watching the whole time from the fucking sky. I'm certain it'll come back to me. Tristan's like, I'll find what the 4th object is. Evie's done enough. I'll go back to the Gleaming Palace and I'll get the book, and the book should explain what the 4th object is. That is too dangerous. We'll find another way. We'll steal the book, rescue the female Givla, find the 4th object, and fulfill the prophecy before King Benedict. And then Gideon's like, hey, got something to tell ya. It never felt like the right time, but I was supposed to give you the antidote to the sleeping death fruit that you ate at the beginning of this book that you needed. I never got it to you. So that means that the only other antidote that is known for the sleeping death fruit had to have been used, which is like true love's kiss. And she's like, no, I won't revel in this joy. And she shoves it deep within herself. It wouldn't serve her now. She's like, I'm not gonna make any more wishes. From now on, I am full of wrath. Beware the wrath of a kind heart, it says. Oh, good. Now Evie's bad. She's going to be a villain. In the epilogue, Gideon's POV, 1 week later, Evie and the villain were avoiding each other the way mermaids avoided ships. That is very much not the plot of The Little Mermaid. And this epilogue is just him and Keely flirting, where she's like, do I look like an errand girl to you? And I hope the dragon eats you. He was surprised and annoyed to find himself staring after her retreating curved form. So he's thinking over the words of the prophecy. Beware the unmasked villain and their malevolent dark, for nothing is more dangerous than a black and good heart. And then it hit him. Tristan hadn't been the only one revealed to all the world at the king's ill-fated event. Evie had too. She'd been unmasked. So again, it's just reiterating that Evie is going to be the unmasked villain from the prophecy. So the villain isn't the villain. Evie is the villain of the prophecy. Wow. And it ends with the end until we meet again. We did it! We did it, guys! We finished it, but at what cost? This shit makes no sense. That's really all I have to, I feel like I've talked for over 2 hours at this point. This doesn't make any sense. This is a bunch of innuendo and tee-hee, and he's right behind me, isn't he? And Dan Schneider bakery comedy with a infantilized main character and her daddy boyfriend who is brooding, but all that it would take was a simple conversation and then he wouldn't have to brood anymore. Miscommunication is the worst, and this book relies purely on that, but it also relies on the reader just being okay with the characters not asking basic questions. And that's ridiculous. I have nothing more to say. If you made it this far, you can leave, I don't know, I guess leave a dagger for Evie's dagger connected to her shoulder or whatever the fuck. Or a star for the starlight magic. You decide, dagger, star, whatever. This has broken something in me. I just don't understand why. Why not answer basic questions? Why not have your characters ask basic questions? These are full adults. Relying on like everybody just seems so stupid. How am I supposed to root for anybody when they're all so ridiculous and stupid? Like even if they weren't infantilized, if Evie was just a normal person who wasn't like acting like a baby all the time and being literally compared to a baby deer, her not asking basic questions, the villain not asking basic questions is bonkers. What do you mean you guys are just gonna be like, noteworthy, Evie caused an arrow to be cracked in half and lights up. And you guys are just like, that was weird. It's weird that that keeps happening. Anyways, never gonna think about that again. I'm losing it. Okay, we're done. We're done. I can't yell about this anymore. None of it makes any sense. This is ridiculous. We are finally done. That was Apprentice to the Villain. I know I need to get to Fearless. I know everybody's asking for Fearless. I will do it. Promise. You know what really gets me about this is that there was no plot. Again, like this was a wild goose chase that leaves you with no answered questions, just more questions and questions that even the characters aren't asking. How ridiculous. How can you possibly have spaced out 4 books with no plot? There's no resolution. It's just pining for all because they can't communicate. I can't talk about it anymore. We'll check back in for the next one. I have to do a Fearless rant review, which means I actually have to read Fearless. So I'll see you for that, and then we'll come back to Accomplice to the Villain. We also need to do part 2 of Silver Elite and third and final part of Onyx Storm. So many things are coming. All right. Thanks so much for watching. Comments and questions go down below, and I will see you next time. Bye. Hi. Before I go, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons, and those are Alexander, Ashley H, Beck, Call Me Kodiak, Choco's Homesick for Taiwan, DJ Rocktopus, Ellie, Emerald Dodge, Eric D, Jade, Jill, John E, Jory, Julie, Kai Brecker has not read 6 of Crows, Kalane OK, Katya, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Lady Chips Loves Pride, Lemon Jelly, Lex, Other Lex, Lily, Maddie Miss, Megwin Rose, Melissa, Mixer Boneless, Not So Secretly a Skeleton, Peggy Lou Who, Piloting SRN, Rain, Ree, SJ, Samar, Scarlet, Steph B, 3 Raccoons in a Trench Coat, Urchin Audrey, and White Raven 13. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend. Huge thank you to my Potato Starch Marxist patrons, Aaron, Alejandra, Alicia, Bobisha, Banana, Fofana, Fofisha. What are we doing? Alicia, Althea, Amanda D, Andy, Angelica, Artie the Ninth, Ava, Barry, Baywing, Beck, Blue Moon Syrup, Bookish by Jenna, Bookish Rabbit, Bridget 108, Kate B, Caitlin, Carlin, Carly, Casper, Kate, Kathy, Celeste, Che, Cole, Colleen, Corwin, Cosmic Frog, Courtney, Darius, Danielle, Danita, Darren, Desiree Michelle, Dilf Enthusiast, Dorothea Supports Public Education, Draco-chan, Drive-By Thinker, Ebby, Emma, Aaron with 2 E's, Erica May, Aaron Starlight, Fox Waifu, Francis, Gadarn, Hannah C, Helen P, Hurry Singh, JM Tennant, Jackalope Max, Jay is on Olympus, Jelly V, Jen Michelle, Genderqueer, Jenny G, Jesse Ives, Jessa Sue, Jojo Bookish, Juicy Wizard, Caitlin M, Katie L, Katrina, Kayla, Kaylee, Kayala, Kendra, Kiara, KMTV, Kayana, Laughing Cat Dog, Laura is Angry, Lauren G, Lazarus Ray, Lindsay M, LP, Lou Siri, Lustful Octopus, Martin, Mataraptor, Madison, Man-Eating Plant, Megan, Malara, Mima Who, Morgan the Friendly Ghost, Myth Lesbian, NM Rap, Natural Blues, Nicole G, Paige P, Penelope, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Pick a God and Pray, Plague Carrier, Pandemonium, Queen Cereal, Rach, Rachel B, Rebecca, Rebecca R, Ren Flynn, Rhea, Reese, Ronnie, Rosie, Secoria, Saintbringer, Sakya Lume, Sarah H, Sarah the Bear, Shamed, Shannon, Sheen Onion, Sean, Sophie, Talia, That One Cute Chick, This Is Not a Trap, Too Thick to Work Tomorrow, Triple M, Tito Phoenix, and Unicorn Jenny. Thank you all so much for being a friend.